Jacob, we had two 2-0s, okay, going out of yesterday's semi-finals. But obviously, this right here, right now, this is when they'll both be tested. So, you know, what can we anticipate?
Well, one of those 2-0s was far closer than the other one was. The game that I believe it was the Talon matchup that CYCLOPS had, that was only an opponent that won 3 rounds on the other side. That was not a close affair at all. Meanwhile, SANDBOX had a much more difficult time getting over Crest yesterday. So if you just look at it like on the face of it and just say, oh, it was 2 fast maps, it wasn't 2 fast maps. I think if anything, it proves that this is still very much a mixed bag. And I went back and I rewatched those games and I just keep on hearing Demo and Ollie going berserk over the things that they're witnessing in both of those matchups. And I think they said, even like in the green room yesterday, that it's one of the most unpredictable, one of the most fun games of Siege that they saw yesterday. I'm just hoping that that replicates itself for tonight.
Yeah, we love like a chaotic play style here. It's just something that we're not as used to, and we cannot wait to get into all of that. But speaking of CYCLOPS, they had an MVP from yesterday, a kind of jack of all trades, could you call it? Jesse, I want you to take us through this because we've got a really cool graphic to show our viewers at home.
Indeed, Banks. I would call him a jack of all trades because Anderson really did play it all yesterday. We already highlighted him in the pre-show as being the best performer in Korea and Japan. 23-5, if you recall, was his KD. And he did it on basically every op in the book. 9 different defensive operators. The most he played of any operator was Mute with 3 picks out of the 12 rounds that they ended up playing. Then Valkyrie being played twice, and then every other operator just being brought a single time. And I think this is a really cool change of pace for Anderson because we always think of him as being this very flex player who will bring out the gimmick strats, but that's usually more of an attack thing, right? On attack, he's always playing the shields, he's always playing, you know, the glass, what have you. But yesterday, it was more on the defense that he was switching things up. You go back to the 6th Invitational, he had a 56% pick rate of Echo. Now that's down to 8%, and he is picking a wide variety of operators instead. We're seeing Anderson play a little bit more sludge, a little bit more kind of standardized roles on the attack, and he's flexing instead on the defensive half, and it has been incredibly effective for him and his team. If this is kind of the new leaf, the new era of CYCLOPS that we are witnessing here at Gamers Without Borders, then I am all for it.
Ooh, Jacob, the difference between first and second spot in this region is $125,000 in charitable donations, and that ticket for Gamers 8. There's a lot on the line, so let's talk experience. Which of these 2 teams who are going to go against each other, you know, which of them has more experience to not buckle under the pressure, maybe more experienced players on their roster?
The correct answer is technically SANDBOX, but that really is only because they just had a LAN appearance under their belt just a couple of weeks ago. The amount of time that the players individually have spent playing this game, if we think to guys like NB Taylor, has been year after year after year of at least being able to make probably like 1 event per year usually. You might think CYCLOPS is probably ahead in the experience department because they've had at least 3 of these guys playing together on the exact same team for the past 3 to 4 years, but now because they're beginning to drip new blood into the scene with guys like Arcully and Shibisu, it's a little bit more of a mixed bag, and we still have yet to see whether they can even make a LAN in the first place. This is the best opportunity they've had since not being able to go to the major in Copenhagen, so this is a place where they can acquire some of that experience. But if we're just talking from a pure longevity standpoint, the answer is pretty clearly SANDBOX. I just don't really know if they're able to properly convert what they have in experience into something that's worthwhile in the server in this meta, because yesterday they got a dub, but it was one of the least pretty things I think I've seen in a long time.
Something for our viewers to mull over for sure while we look at our vetoes, because we're going to get to see if our teams have done their research before coming into this. We've discussed that this region has quite an unorthodox and chaotic playstyle, so they can be quite unpredictable no matter what map they play on. But Jesse, take us through some of these picks. What are you thinking?
Okay, so we'll start with a Chalet pick from SANDBOX. Not a super common map. They won it 7-2 over Talon, game number 3 to qualify for the Copenhagen Major. Otherwise, they haven't played it at all this year, but it's also very rare from CYCLOPS. We're starting in kind of unknown territory. They haven't played it since Stage 3 last year in closed competition, and to their credit, they had a very good record, 4-1 back then, with their only loss being an 8-6 match against M&M, but again, bit of a different roster back then, and not a lot of plays recently. So Chalet, definitely a bit of a curveball to come out for the very first map of the series.
I like the Kafe pick too, because the last time we saw it, this was CAG playing it against Fnatic, and that was a 7-3. So it feels like there are some things that they're already beginning to pick up. But that was a one play in stage 1. They haven't played it since then, and it probably is a map I would have loved to have seen them pick at any other point in that stage if they wanted to have a decent shot at making it to Copenhagen. So just for me, I'm pretty cool saying that both of the first maps in this series are probably going to end up going to the teams that picked them respectively, and then everything else from there, that's definitely way more up in the air.
Yeah, do you think that this wylde pick from CYCLOPS, do you think that this is just based off of yesterday? Because SANDBOX went the distance, they went 8-7 in this wylde pick, and then CYCLOPS were pretty comfortable on this map yesterday. But then again, they weren't playing against an org that really tested them, right, Jacob?
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think anybody can probably look at the way that wylde played for SANDBOX yesterday. That was an overtime game that was probably the source of me saying that that was one of the least pretty things that I've seen in quite some time, because if they had a strong map 1, they did not have a very strong map 2. SANDBOX need to clean things up, and CYCLOPS need to adjust to the things that SANDBOX were doing yesterday, because it took them so long to finally win that thing. They weren't playing great off site. If SANDBOX were making mistakes, they were making them huge. They won several clutches, but that's the only reason why they won the map in the first place. So I feel like if we need a wylde for any particular reason, if CYCLOPS need a map 4, CYCLOPS are probably going to win a map 4. So SANDBOX need to come out of the gate swinging with these first couple of maps in my book.
Oh, I like that. Okay, very quick prediction. Jesse, one word, hit me.
Anitson. I think CYCLOPS take this. I think their star player is going to lead them forward.
Anitson. What about you, Jacob?
I can't really beat that other one word, so I certainly hope the answer is Monty. If you say Anitson, he's got to bust a shield out or two here. I think he'll definitely do that.
Oh, well, you've heard what we think over here. Now it's time to see what our casters think. It's Blue and Stokes in the caster seat. Let's get our first grand final underway.
Thank you very much, and welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen. It's our pleasure to be back ourselves once again here for day 2 of the action on the Gamers Without Borders Rainbow Six event for 2023. Stokes is with me on the comm. How you feeling this evening, Stokes, as we get ready to jump into this best of 5 grand final for the Korean and Japan bracket?
I'm doing awesome, man. Ready to get into it. Really excited to see what the CYCLOPS have to offer us here today, especially up against a team like SANDBOX, one that's got a pretty, historic history here in Rainbow Six Siege, so bound to be a fun one.
All right, well, we're going to be going live in just a moment, it seems, with map number 1. So let's get ourselves ready for it, ladies and gentlemen. Only one of these teams going to be able to forge a path forward to the main event at Gamers 8 itself in just a few months' time. You saw the announcement there. There's quite a bit of fun to be had at that event. Quite a bit of prizing to be won for our teams directly at that event as well, but also quite a bit of charitable donation prizing to be fought over here today, still on top of that qualification for the main event. So let's get into it and find out who is going to be taking that spot as SANDBOX and CYCLOPS get themselves into the bans. Monty is the first one to be removed by SANDBOX, and CYCLOPS will respond with their own personal attacker ban of the Dokkaebi.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jacob, but your consideration for the day has already been removed. No Monty play this morning, at least as of right now. We might get some Blitz play, might get some Clash play, might get some Osa play, sprinkled in there, but doesn't look like we'll be getting any Monty. Dokkaebi will also be off the board, and Solus will be the very next ban here from CYCLOPS. So far, so good when it comes to the ban list, and honestly expected when it comes to what we've been seeing recently.
Yeah, staying inside of those 3 triangle defenders that we see banned out quite often here inside of just the overall stat pool. It's going to stay inside of that once again, as we'll have Valkyrie removed as the second defender there. So that'll round things out for our bans. Get ourselves into the first round, as we do need to go live with the first map of this series. One thing to keep in mind with these teams as well, and the fact that we have not seen either one of them make it super deep at a major-like event in the past, as there will be a relative amount of inexperience when it comes to playing this best-of-5 format. That's where what the analysis was talking about for teams that have been together for a longer period of time and have been able to see that deeper play at events. They're potentially going to be better suited for this one if it does end up going the full distance. If one team is able to close out on this one in 3-0 or potentially 3-1 fashion, that'll be much more better served for that squad ultimately if they are going to be running into that issue. But either way, we'll be starting things off here for SANDBOX with a bar hold on the first round of their personal defense.
Solid op lineup coming into this as well, you know, kind of trap-oriented here, especially with the Frost coming in. High-value pick, especially for the window play that we see pretty often on Chalet. Love the top floor hold that we have coming in from SANDBOX. No mirror window facing in, but still have everything else kind of open for themselves to try and see if they can slow down Cyclops on this entry. And that's really what we're going to be paying attention to initially here from Cyclops. How do they deal with this library area that SANDBOX has set up? Got a lot of utility for this. You know, they do the nades as well as the Ying coming in that we saw banned out pretty often yesterday, John. So good, will be at least a good moment to see a couple of executes go off earlier on here today.
Got a little bit of at least early positioning aggression being wound up by the members of SANDBOX, most notably, of course, by Meph as he's playing that harsh corner on the inside of Library itself. And then downstairs, you can see Demic trying to get into position to kind of counter things out from those basement rotations if they're going to try to counter their way into that one, too. He's already rotated himself. Demic, that is further up towards blue stairs. Arculling, meanwhile, sneaking on the inside of the site, taking away at least one of those defender-sided Banshees, so it removes that obstacle when it comes down to the execute time, especially if they end up in a low-time scenario here. You look at the attacker line, they don't necessarily have a whole lot of direct ways to deal with that unless they wanted to commit like one of the only two nades they have on Shibisu, so it's a good thing that they're taking that out. Now that default cam is going to evade at least that jump, however, they'll be unable to capture it at this early phase of the round.
Suzuki's look line up there, but nobody wanted to deal with Mephi just yet. Decent delay coming out on this top floor hold here. No real push from Cyclops as of now. We'll finally get the burn going, but Mephi thinking he actually might have enough Doc Stims to get this done. He'll stem himself back up, and Arkaze with a big double coming through on the entry game, but finally Anaton will step up to the plate, and he is able to at least get one. It's going to be the rest of the squad to try and pick up the pieces from the other end of the map. NV Taylor with one of his own as well, as an entry is flung towards the site, but as the dust settles just a tad bit, it goes down to the 2v2, making it a 2v1. NV Taylor all over this play from Cyclops as it just comes down to Chibi. Some nice shots from NV. A nice read here as well, but looks like they'll at least be able to keep them at bay here and going in the last minute.
Chibi's unfortunately getting red as he tries to make that forward entry as well. Caught pretty much immediately as he tries to step forward through the doorway. So already his plans have been thwarted for the most part. He'll try to rotate back over here towards the billiards window now where the case is waiting for him sitting on the ground here, but knows that that's not going to really be a safe option ultimately at the end of the day. Just trying to figure out the best possible way to at least get this 1v2 started, realizing the difficulty that sits around the corner here, especially with that Banshee sitting in the way. Thankfully, we'll be allowed out from the doorway to quickly take that down. Getting beyond this, taking any real further steps forward is going to be the true obstacle for Chibi. He'll be spotted out there by the default as he works his way up the stairs, but pays no mind towards it as he needs to commit himself to a play. Unfortunately, SANDBOX don't want to commit themselves to the play here either, with time starting to get low. They'll try to detach this into the 2v1, and they'll succeed in doing so as Mephi finally picks up that last kill of the round, locking in the round itself for SANDBOX.
And very well done from SANDBOX. I especially like the dog play upstairs. You know, they knew that Capitao Burn was more than likely going to come in, and that's exactly what happened. You know, we didn't really see any other influence past that utility-wise. We saw some gunfights try and be, you know, thrown into the top floor, but it really just all went the way of SANDBOX initially till we saw Cyclops kind of get that resurgence later on with their re-entry. SANDBOX is doing a very, very, you know, good job of being able to keep things locked up on site and making their jobs a heck of a lot easier. This time they're actually going to adopt in the Mira as well, something that we could have seen in their previous defense, especially with the paneling that they had set up upstairs, but still just as beneficial on this basement floor.
Yeah, more emphasis on the fallback noted there is what ultimately allowed for SANDBOX to still capture that one. Could have, as you were mentioning, made things a little bit easier for themselves on trying to extend their time in the upstairs hold by bringing a mirror into the lineup, but now already going to be correcting upon that here for the basement hold itself. Obviously, we'll see those mirrors themselves played a little bit more directly onto the site in order to help out with that one. So we'll have to see if SANDBOX are going to be more tuned for the task to continue excelling here on the defensive side to look for a second round on top of that. A few repicks do come in on Cyclops because of that site choice here, so with more than enough utility to be able to knock out the snowmobile garage, and Anaton should be able to do some decent damage to the insight utility setups as well.
Kind of a similar flair from a matchup that you and I saw yesterday on Chalet, John. Kind of a mirror window applied inside of the dining space. It'll look out towards the fireplace hallway, so it'll be interesting to see how that actually works out. We're gonna get the hard breach down and no real prevention capable from the defense here. Those electro claws are going to be way too slow to try and keep up with the pacing of the Selma charges. So Cyclops already starting off with the right foot forward, looking to see if they can progress through this map and potentially get a different angle built up for this execution. Looking for some top floor control now. Doesn't seem like we'll have too many sandbox bodies in the way. Just potentially one upstairs here. Has strung off. I think that's Mephi all the way over towards Solaire. I mean, it will be indeed. Black Ray's already gotten up towards Master. Some nice shots, but oh, the door frame getting in his way. Mephi will at least get one, and nobody's got the cross down low either. He's going to be able to slink off back towards sight, and Chibi might be in some trouble. I'll take some shots as well, and now SANDBOX looking to try and abuse this lead yet again.
It's Envy Taylor jumping in there with some final fadeaway shots onto the aggressor from Cyclops. That's Chibi being reduced to about 60% HP. A final nice catch being found here, and a very much needed one at this phase of the round from Chibi as well. Potential second kill still to be found, but low on ammo for the primaries. Tries to do it the secondary instead, but Mephi once again able to dodge his way past danger there, keep himself alive. But Demic still potentially going to be taking some of the aggression here on the first floor. Not necessarily from that same top-down angle. You can still see, of course, Chibi in position to attempt to work that, but a few other members of Cyclops still roaming around here, yet to have noticed Demic as far as I'm aware too, so he can still really light up some problems for the attack, and indeed he's going to do that as he finds at least one connection here against Stanton. Will go for that second player up on top, but Chibi's resilience here on this angle pays off, so he finally gets that second kill to even us back into the 3v3.
Yeah, the drone game is not looking too hot for Cyclops right now, but it doesn't seem to matter as they've been able to trade out body for body so far. Case will at least be in control of our Cully. Suzu is going to go for the big adjustment over towards Big Garage as well. Chibi does have hatch control. It's been strong on these more vertical positions so far this round, but now it's down to the big entry, and obviously SANDBOX know where this is coming from. The Selma's out the Nitro Cell as well. They'll get caught by Arcoli. Some nice shots from another angle in blue. Good boy with some beautiful kills. It's going to be Arcoli to try and battle back though, but Arukaze will be able to shut it down. Suzu now has to move in the 1 versus 2. A nice flank through. He'll be able to take down one, the AK. Able to at least pick up that hatch player. Arukaze, no Nitro Cell, has to try and play this out. He's able to fake it through, and he gets him to peek. Suzu can't win it out, and the defense stave off at least the first round here coming from the offense.
Bit risky there in the final seconds from Arukaze. He does tempt fate with the full peak, thinking there might have been a commitment. Obviously not the case, but still ends up taking the kill anyway, giving a second defensive round over to the hands of SANDBOX. Currently dominating at 2-0 inside of this matchup. 2 for 2 on their site selection. They're going to try to make it a full 3-site rotation coming up on this next round. Beautifully held, but one very much in the same way. A close affair as we see Cyclops try to trade their way onto the site. Unfortunately, unsuccessfully at the end of the round, as once again, that 1 or 2 players from SANDBOX is able to hold the line and win it out in the dying moments of the round in the clutch.
There's a couple of awkward moments there for Cyclops, really. And it's mostly due to just how SANDBOX is able to play out that last minute there. You know, they were really able to keep the playbook open and see what they could potentially do with some of the later rotations. And I really appreciated that from them, especially given the circumstances of Cyclops' drones, right? They were down to just the last 3 remaining, and you really don't know, A, where those are actively, and B, if they're really even on a good spot, right? And so it makes it to where the SANDBOX are kind of capable of doing whatever the heck they really want with the map. And just ended up being a very, very nice play from them.
Well, going for the 3rd floor this time, or rather the 2nd floor this time around here, should make things at least a little bit easier when it comes to clearing that off-site pressure, as Cyclops has been struggling. A, keep an adequate drone count for the actual site, execute and trying to clear out those off-site positions, and aside from that, manage their time appropriately to get themselves to the site with adequate access to be able to appropriately get themselves onto the site. So hopefully now by making a return to the 3rd floor, well, they'll still have to do a little bit of that off-site clearance on the kind of 2nd floor, mainly the stairways and whatnot. They can focus, I think, a little bit more poignantly onto the site itself here and hopefully diminish those issues to try and navigate themselves finally into at least 1 round here for themselves in the first rotation from SANDBOX's defense.
Love in these extended angles we're seeing right now for Arukaze. Oh, but it doesn't work out for him. Oh my. The quick crossfire here, the window play, as well as the long angle there from Library, able to soak up that shield Mephi. not able to really pull it back into their favor either on this rotation. Arcoli yet again hitting his mark. Now it's going to be up to the remaining SANDBOX members to try and get something going for themselves here, John. They do have a nitro cell down low that they could try and play around with. No real way to try and prevent the wall, though, so no easy maintenance right now. Not really capable of a situation like that. So Demic going to be able to at least pick up the smoke and hold on to the wall, at least for the time being, although it does have a new fancy hole in it that Cyclops will surely try to exploit to its fullest potential.
Build-ups has been strong so far from Cyclops, but this is often the big test right here, and it's going to be a great opportunity not just for Demic, but for the rest of SANDBOX to maybe have things get turned, or more than likely not going to go that way, though at least not initially with the way the Demic. Oh no, and now Envy Taylor has fallen to the same exact method that Demic went down to a few seconds prior. Just a nade air bursting to the face. Anitin takes them all out as well there, as he gets credit for his third kill by taking at least one of them down, of course, off the Riptero drone. Suzuk going for the plant. Not really much that's going to hold them back at this point, as it is just Good Boy alone here inside of what is essentially a 1v4. Some nice damage as he peeks back out there with the pre-fire on the Anitin, but in terms of actually navigating his way back onto the site and starting a retake, it's going to be, unfortunately, a far cry for himself here. Arcoli shuts him down, and that's finally going to be CAG on the board with a 2-1 scoreline.
Yeah, they get their opportunity and they don't miss their mark, right? You know, they get that nice little offering from SANDBOX with Arkaze on the extension there with the shield. I just don't think that they really consider what could happen to his positioning given the fallback strategy that he had to try and use with that shield. Just unfortunately made it real easy for Cyclops to pick him up initially. Liked some of the longer angles over towards Library, but obviously Cyclops liked it a lot too, didn't they? So able to easily dispatch him on that one and then transition that into that big kill on the pickup there from the flank player from SANDBOX. So now transitioning this over into a Cyclops timeout is not the worst time in the world to call one after a round victory. You know, try and get some things fixed up and see if you can you know, continue keeping on, especially for Arcoli's sake. He's been playing it pretty well as Chibi here to start the day.
Possibility that this judgment call was made before the round was actually won as well, and they just more than wanted to review things now that they've completed that first full rotation. You can see, of course, SANDBOX making the selection to return back down to bar, so we are not going to play the fourth and final site. It is just going to be a complete go-around, so Cyclops, like I said before, just kind of probably breaking things down, giving the synopsis of the first 3 rounds out so that they can come up with a game plan for all the reruns, which are more likely going to come up here over the next 3 rounds, including this one here on round 4. So let's see if indeed they'll be able to make those corrections. They do need to pick up these first 2 here if they want to see a complete flip, and Cyclops to ultimately try and take control of this half at a potential 4-2. Be a great turnaround for them if they can make it happen, but SANDBOX certainly looking prominent with their specifically upstairs, or rather the downstairs defenses that they were able to play out on rounds 1 and 2. So it is going to take quite a bit of work from Cyclops to make up for that.
Yeah, although this is going to be a bar defense, this is going to look a heck of a lot different than the last bar defense that we saw from SANDBOX. A little extension out towards the office with some rotations, some different castle barricades upstairs, as well as a little bit of a different operator lineup as well here. No Doc this time around, especially like what we saw last time with the big play around the Capitao bolts. Although we will have the Capitao to still try and clear out some of the harder fought positions around the top floor. And will be the one piloting Ying this time around, a very high-flying operator as of late, a fan favorite it seems, as well as she's been constantly picked or banned in recent history. So we'll see if Cyclops are able to get a little bit done with that inside of this round. Also, they are bringing a little buck action too, so have plenty of soft destruction to go around for this top floor. Sadly, no Maverick. I was hoping we'd work that in just for that single panel there for bar stock. They were able to get a little torch line on that like we've been seeing, you know, over towards main stairs. But have to see how they try and progress through this top floor. So far, so good for Cyclops. They've gotten some solid information, but nothing too effective towards the actual players of SANDBOX just yet.
We didn't actually get to talk too much about the fact that, of course, the Ying was left unbanned, a pretty uncommon occurrence so far, at least as far as the games we watched yesterday on the B stream were concerned. And even inside of the major as well, Ying was still a very common ban to see played out there, just because of her effectiveness when she isn't knocked out from play. Good boy, some patient play for him in the meanwhile on the inside of Library there as he tries to line up a pre-fire on the cross outside of Library, unfortunately to no effect at the end of the day. But CYCLOPS still wasting out the time, of course, to try and set themselves up for the first real bit of aggression they're going to deploy towards here on the inside of the building. May just be a direct play into Billiards as well as they try to basically ignore the upstairs hold on the inside of Library. A bold play to be certain, as SANDBOX could very easily collapse back on this, and already the first player that tries to hop in the window is going to fall. Blacker exchanges it, but loses another teammate a moment later to Good Boy, still holding things from the inside of the site. Mephi's up next here for SANDBOX as he takes out R. Cully, bringing it down to only 2 for the attackers. One still stuck outside of that big Billiards window as well, and the other one, unfortunately, just down on the side hall entry. Suzuk with no choice here, has to rotate back over to try and support Black Ray. Really hoping he can get him back up now so that he's not left alone on an island for this 1v4. Should be able to do it from the way that the setup currently looks. SANDBOX not really going to overplay their hand, although as we're seeing now, Demic is right around the corner, so could have tried to make a move if he wanted to there, but chose the safe option, and that is going to reignite the 2v4. Suzuk can now take up his previous position closer to the big window or some other entry point, depending on the way he wants to play this. But the pressure very much is still on Black Ray, even with that low HP, to try and make something happen from the side hall. And unfortunately, both players are running out of time to make anything happen here, which is about 12 seconds left to go. Where's the aggression going to come from? Where's that ignition going to boil through? And it looks like they don't really have a choice. They'll both try to play in from the side hall door. Demic already shutting down one, and it's no problem to shut down number 2 as well. SANDBOX complete their hold, and the second take now on the inside of the bar site as they continue to maintain the lead here against CYCLOPS.
Yeah, easy, breezy, beautiful. That's SANDBOX Gaming so far through this couple of rounds here. You know, we have gotten some solid play out of CYCLOPS, but this last round, they just tried and simply throw it at the site, John. Really nothing else past that. Really didn't like their top floor look and decided to see if they could simply walk onto site, get the entry picks necessary with the smoke play around the Capital bolts, and clearly was not the case. Good boy managing the window too well there. It was too strong of a position for him, and ended up getting quite a few of the bigger kills inside of that round, shutting down the spearhead of CYCLOPS. And now CYCLOPS sent reeling into round 5. They do have a potential to try and shore up this score line and at least get the minimum here, that 4-2-2. So they'll be able to muster that, as this is going to be a kitchen defense that we'll see offered up from SANDBOX now.
10 seconds left.
SANDBOX continuing to show quite a bit of a statement here inside of the first map of the series, looking to try and make their mark nice and early on. They already have a potential to do that by locking in a minimum 4-2, possible 5-1 by taking this 4th and final site that they have now rotated into. Usual extensions being deployed, of course, onto the 2nd floor. To support those, we'll have Arkaze be the main defender of things, main anchor, as it were, inside of the site itself for now, whereas the rest of the team is going to extend up onto that 2nd floor and try to waste out as much time as possible. This is a pretty straightforward play. CYCLOPS is very obviously going to read into that one and begin to work on their own plans to try and get in the way of that. Already you can see one player going on Repel, try and directly counter out any of the rotates from the inside of the main bedroom there, but a lot more work aside from that going to need to be done to properly clear this out and hopefully open up a more direct access point for CYCLOPS to get themselves onto the site.
Dropping back.
On default, cam's still up, so still some solid utility over inside of Fireplace, but doesn't really seem like CYCLOPS are all too concerned about that at the current moment, especially with the mirror play coming in here. I'm going to try and make a play for this top floor, especially with Amaru working her way in. That Gara hook so very deadly when it comes to trying to get into a position quickly. You have Envy Taylor upstairs awaiting his arrival, although probably unbeknownst to him at the current moment, but will surely make his presence known as soon as that Gara hook applies itself to the window. Arcali is going to try and hold on to Master, kind of get a counter angle for this top floor and try and assist with this clear, but it's really now or never, you know. Obviously, with the position that they're going for on this top floor, they still have to try and transition this into an execute onto the actual kitchen. And that's a key factor here. They don't want to waste too much time, because if they do, it could limit what they potentially could get done later on in the round.
What I think right now just kind of bleeding out Demek's Toxic Babes and kind of winding up the rest of the team as well for the rest of this breach. And here we go. Harukaze that holds the line and strikes true for the first hold, but Envy Taylor is going to get traded out on the inside of Solarium. Good boy goes 1 for 1 against Dark Cully, which is going to open up a path forward onto the site for the rest of CAG now. They take it as another member of the defense goes down. This time it's Harukaze himself fighting from the border of the site. Mephi trying to take some revenge back against the players on the inside of Solarium. Will succeed in doing that by taking down Chibisu, but that only serves to equalize things out into a 2v2. Both teams as well also had very similar HPs to each other, with one player heavily injured and another one relatively close to full HP. Cyclops, because of that return to an even player count, tries to get aggressive here and attempts to swing their way back over towards the bedroom here. Candela used to prompt that as well, and it works out for Anaton as he gets at least one more player knocked out before being down on the counter from Demek. Demek versus Suzu is now what this breaks down to, but Demek just goes for the play outright, swings into the open, and shuts it down for his team instead, locking in that massive advantage for SANDBOX on the halftime, regardless of what we get out of this last round here.
SANDBOX put it all on black, and it works out, John. Everybody dedicated to the top floor for the most part, and it works right into their favor. Cyclops really, really wanting control of this area to try and get a plant, more than likely down inside of Kitchen, but obviously it's not in the cards for them, as Cyclops are constantly thwarted on the entry time and time again from SANDBOX. Every single body that still existed, all 4 of them on the map, and between these two teams, 2 versus 2 in that situation, going for the top floor. Although the site on that mid floor, interesting situations here, especially for Cyclops, as they're just so dedicated to that trial and error, especially on that top floor. Things just really, really not working out for them, but hopefully some things in the pipeline to try and fix that up. Looks like they do have the blitz play coming in now from Black Ray, so could be something that tries to change up their fate here in the near future, as SANDBOX is looking to try and get some early exploits here, at least for Mephi's case, but doesn't seem to have worked out for him.
Yeah, Mephi unfortunately losing a considerable amount of HP right off the bat of things. No way to really change that up either. So we're not going to see the correct utility brought from our defenders to try and mitigate out any of that damage. Was using it back around number 1 as we had the dock brought in, but that was kind of a selfish dock, so we could sit in the corner of library and waste out all of the incendiary utility from Cyclops. So Mephi now down for the count somewhat as a result of that one. The rest of Cyclops, of course, still to slow wind up even aside from that one. Cyclops have had some good capability to take out the wall. As we see there works its way through, and the Twitch drone actually makes it out. Nicely done to take out the electrical on the process of this one too, but it's still SANDBOX to get the first kill of the round, ultimately taking out our Cully, I believe, trying to peek out through that big window there. Leaving the members of Cyclops 1 player further down. That's also our Cully with the nades in hand as well. No backup set for anyone else there on Cyclops' side, so depending on how many of those got used, that is going to be some sorely missed utility. Good boy with the possibility to make it 2 down here for Cyclops now, as he's also holding the line against this blitz rush coming in, but no, Chibisu makes it in past Black Ray, who of course leads the charge with the shield in hand, gonna be able to overwhelm the Cade. Also, once again, the blitz play working out for the aggressors here, as it's going to forge a path forward through the entire defensive setup, just ignoring all the fundamentals of how to breach their way past it and booming their way forward, just killing their way into a round win to set up a 4-2 halftime scoreline.
Yeah, they kind of, for the most part, ignored every fundamental they could and made it work. And that is it. That's really it. They didn't really preemptively open the door for, you know, a trench there, so that, you know, the defense could kind of get used to the situation going on. So right when they break it open, you know, all of SANDBOX's attention is over towards that door. The blitz immediately rushes in and loses 90% of his HP. They still have the crosses and everything for the back end of that, John, but despite all of the negative factors to what Cyclops did there, they were still the people that won the round.
Very, very true. As Cyclops,
I mean, it was just they were just better, man. That was really it.
yeah. Like I said, they ignored all the fundamentals, and there's a lot of inherent risk with that. SANDBOX theoretically should have been able to collapse back upon that and shut it down pretty easily, but they didn't, as Cyclops was way too successful when it came to their entry power here. Just not enough responses from the inside anchors themselves, and way too slow of a reaction, of course, from the rest of the team. Ultimately, though, doubt SANDBOX going to be losing too much sleep over that one. Still managed to negotiate a 4-2 half on the defensive end of this map, which is still going to be pretty strong at the end of the day. If they follow it through with half of the remaining rounds coming up here now, then they will be able to take control of the first of 3 maps needed to win. Important reminder, folks, you can see it there at the top right. This is a best-of-5 final, not a best-of-3, so you got to go the full distance here today.
Yes, indeed. We are locked in this morning, so don't be using that voice too much, John. You don't know what's going to be happening later on. We could have somebody jump ahead and then have to pull it all the way back to the full breadth of the 5. If we end up seeing the different kind of energy out of these players here today. So looks like we are going to get things muted out, actually, for Arukaze. We'll be able to pick up that Rotero drone and try to reapply it later on to help out SANDBOX in their very first offense. Chibi is going to be piloting Azami here for this very first defense for Cyclops, though. Trying to hold up some of the windows on this top floor for themselves, as it's going to be, or at least going to be similar circumstances to what we had seen previously, from SBX on their defenses around this area. Nice little sledge there, yeah, and from Garage, able to bust things up there for the West Main area as well as Trophy. Just make sure there's nobody playing deep in on some of those angles. But looks like SANDBOX does want to try and dedicate themselves to the top floor. Swing in here from Demic, and let's see how it goes.
Nade being primed as well to go up on top. NVTail actually throws that one a little bit late to catch another player on the first floor, but it's the hold from Mephi, as well as, of course, some assistance there from Demic that picks up the opening kill. Mephi and Arukaze for the attack both get traded out, though, so Demic losing a lot of his capability to push forward as well. Not to mention, we still have that rotation that came back up on top from Cyclops. Is going to try to press back in here. Demic is, of course, aware of it. There's not much he can do to directly challenge against it, and that player actually has fallen back now, it looks like, wrapped back around, that has gone over through the lobby into the actual site, as Shibisu also has the back line held there if they try to rotate through the basement and work their way up those front line stairs. Not a whole lot of options being presented, unfortunately, because of all this, to both NVTail and Demic to actually clutch this one out. Going to try and work it to the best of their own capability, but just grasping at straws. You see Demic just kind of pre-firing there to hopefully catch someone if there was anyone in the area for NVTail's sake. But like I said before, the team is kind of grasping at straws here for anything that could potentially work into their favor, as they are playing blind to try and make this 2v4 work now.
So much utility still in the pockets of Cyclops as well to try and deal with this situation. In between a rock and a hard place for SANDBOX at the current moment. Say the same for NVTail, especially with his given circumstances. And the trophy stairs he comes. Some bullets heading him through the wall, but it'll be a simple peppering of him. No real loss here, nothing really gained, all except for the frag that he'll find inside of Dining here. Demic trying to assist him, but how much can he do on such low HP? It's going to be the crossfire here from Blackray, and not enough time for the offense to get this done. The utility game, absolutely stellar from Cyclops on the defense.
Great hold there once again from Cyclops to quickly rebound here and put things only one round away from a tie point at 4-4. Nice statement made there. We get a pretty lackluster early clear from SANDBOX when it comes to the way they try to handle things on that upstairs bedroom hold that Cyclops had deployed themselves towards. Cyclops just pretty much trade their way out inside of that one and back their players down afterwards. A default hold there on the inside of Kitchen wins them that round with pretty much no struggles whatsoever. Now leaves them once again in a prime position to potentially follow that through with another very similar hold, just on a different part of the map, to try and tie things up entirely. So let's see if SANDBOX gives a little bit more of a convincing clear, this time on the library side instead of that bedroom end.
It's going to be bar gaming here for Cyclops as they're looking to try and tie things up with round 8. SANDBOX looking to finally get something on the board here after a little while's worth of time. Going to be some big sweeping changes coming through the office, it seems, for SANDBOX, as it's going to be a 3-op line shift. The Twitch, the Nook, and the Amaru coming in. A lot more Amaru play working its way in recently, as it seems, as people really starting starting to fall in love with this Gara hook more and more. And why not? You know, the more aggressive play style, especially with some of the earlier executes you can look for. Pretty interesting look. Hopefully we got some drones here because Blackray is in the area, and that could prove to be a problem, but looks like it's actually going to be a setup for Good Boy. Blackray now knowing that we do have a Nook in the area, so we'll see how this one goes for them.
Quick pinch attempt onto the player on the inside of Trophy, but it has needed to have been slowed down by quite a bit here. That player is well aware of the fact that they're currently being hunted, so they cannot just directly play it forward anymore. Good Boy, though, still set up to make his move and gonna go for the swing. Ready, in position for it. Second guess himself, but it's all right as he's able to rescope in. Blackray seems to be none the wiser to it, so succeeds in finding that first kill. Envy Taylor also takes a duel versus Anaton. In the process of Anaton backing away, of course, we're gonna try to get a little bit of revenge for that, but unfortunately not of the right read on the angle here, so gives the respect over. Good Boy prime for his own personal second as he reads into a basement rotate from our Cully and really manages to take him down as well. Survives that without taking really a whole lot of extra damage that wasn't already taken in that first fight. So nicely done once again here for Good Boy to perfectly fill out his role on the Nook, as well as the other players still succeeding in clearing parts of the upstairs roam out as well.
Well, Cyclops will at least be able to hold on to Library for now. SANDBOX going for the full clear of the map here. Some nice angles adopted from them. Look at this one right here from Suzu. To be holding things on top of the shelf. Chibi's actually going to be the one to go down here to Mephi. That 417, so very strong. No matter what way you slice it. Anaton going to go for the big rotation here. Some nice shots, but it's going to be Envy Taylor that catches him off guard. Another player donated towards the beacon, but no, it's going to be Suzu instead to pick him up and pick up his teammate as well. Demic will be able to get the plant here, going into a 2 versus 3 now for Cyclops, both on very low HP as well. Arcoli trying to get this rotation to work for himself. He'll be able to at least muster one before they have to try and find a way to get this plant diffused.
Some great impromptu play over the course of this round from Good Boy. Anaton as well with a huge misread. Demic now going to be able to pick up his only other teammate because of that one. Had his opponent on the upside down rappel, was not able to capture it while he was within view. Anaton now with no choice, just leaps right out, plays onto the rope that he can see right there, but still ultimately gets beaten out by Demic on his flank with a final angle to take him down. With some great heads-up play from Good Boy, but at the same time, CAG were bringing a little bit more to the table and nearly were able to completely retake the site because of that one. Thankfully, SANDBOX, by the time we saw that retake begin, had already fully secured the site itself, and they were just barely able to get themselves in a strong enough post-play position to navigate themselves into a winning position for that round. So they were still able to take control of things as they push ahead once again here at 5-3 over CAG. Just 2 rounds to go now to take control of the first map of this series.
Yes, indeed. Cyclops a little hyper-focused on some of these vacuum situations, like what we saw going on with Envy Taylor over inside of Piano. He was more of a distraction measure than he was anything, as the real show was going on inside of sight. So we'll see if Cyclops can potentially get a little bit more assistance on some of the more main objectives, rather than you know, some of these more outskirts duels that we've been seeing happening throughout the game so far. But, you know, even with that being said, Cyclops still playing a pretty strong game right now, and the game plan has not been bad from them. It's just been these situations haven't exactly been beneficial for them. They've been kind of losing bodies left and right, and even with the later round decisions where they try and fight back for it, and they still end up losing that body as well. So it just makes it really, really difficult to try and fight things out against SANDBOX, and they have such a strong matrix after getting a post plant down, like you know, in a situation like that. So we'll see if Cyclops can do anything about that when it comes to round 9, as SANDBOX is out and about on the board yet again.
Slow windup as you might expect, obviously, especially with the map being what it is here. Not any immediately actionable positioning that these players oftentimes get. Although Good Boy certainly going to be trying to work things like he's still on the Nook, although obviously Envy Taylor has now taken over that role and is proceeding forward in a very nearby position to Good Boy as well. The nade also being primed from down below. Either one of them could try to pick this one up. Suzu thankfully dodges the large majority of that damage by backing into the corner. Now realizes that, okay, there's probably a drone near me. This is no longer safe, and is indeed going to fall back away into the safer flooring of that main hallway right there. He's got a few other teammates built up from the inside of that position as well. Big lurk coming in here too from Good Boy. Still working his way up here. Was able to negotiate that first kill or two for the team on the last round. He's going to be trying to do something similar here. Keeping a stalwart hold on that, at least until we went away from his POV, that main stairs angle. Chibi looks to try and get in the way of some of this here as he fires out against that little bit of utility, potentially a drone or something working its way in from the angle he was shooting at a second ago, but not able to make the mark on top of that directly. There's the opportunity for Good Boy as he makes that return to the angle we were mentioning previously, and indeed locks in that opening kill for his team yet again.
Reloading.
So far, so good from SANDBOX. This will be able to take down Suzu, and Good Boy as well with a big one onto Anaton. As it simply seems like CYCLOPS haven't been able to catch up to SANDBOX. Not the same fire, but looks like they'll finally be able to, well, extinguish this in a certain sense at least. They'll be able to pick up Arukaze, and Good Boy will also go down. The drone game is starting to dry up as well for SANDBOX, so we'll have nearly as much info to work off of, kind of flying blind going into the last 45 seconds now. And boy, it has been caught up in a frost mat that was on blue stairs, so they'll at least be able to break him out of that. But that just means Arcoli is aware of the positioning, as they likely heard that trap go off earlier on. Good Boy now with a triple kill on the round for himself too, as CYCLOPS cannot catch a break. Oh, but Black Gray might just give him one. He might just give him a round as well from the piano position. It fires out, a play in, and it's Arcoli on the cross. CYCLOPS get it done.
And that's why you ban the Azami, ladies and gentlemen. It's unfortunately leaving her in play gives far too much freedom over to that player that has access, of course, to those barricades and potentially anyone else that can even play around them as well. Beautifully done by CYCLOPS to forge their way back into a round after it looked like SANDBOX may have had the entry power built up together. You can see that slight setup they had for themselves built at the top of blue was very delicately put together, and just a few peaks here and there bring CYCLOPS right back into the round and right back into a kill advantageous position where they are able to shut down the round itself from and bring themselves within one round's grasp of a tie point yet again. 4-5, 2 to go to end for SANDBOX, but CYCLOPS of course chasing OT at 2 points of their own and a potential theft of this map outright if they can win the next 3 outright.
I was going to say, it's really not, that outside of bounds for them to try and take this in regulation still in comparison to SANDBOX. I mean, SANDBOX still has to get 2 rounds just to do that themselves, and CYCLOPS with that 3 doesn't really seem that far-fetched. So we'll see if CYCLOPS can potentially continue with what we've seen inside of these last couple of rounds on their defensive side of things. As for SANDBOX, though, it's kind of been a top-end affair here. We've seen some big rounds from them, especially from Good Boy, but we need to see them try and hit that consistent mark here and see if they can get a nice little roll going, especially inside of a best of 5. That's really what you're looking for. You don't want to hit those hot streaks because then come the cold ones as well. That's when the other team can bounce back and start potentially taking some maps themselves.
Once again, it's been an incredibly back and forth chain of events so far here on the inside of this game. And CYCLOPS, of course, subverting the expectations once again, able to bring themselves within just a single round's reach, potentially tying this game up and finally bring themselves back into a leading position that they would find for the first time in this series. It's been SANDBOX with the lead, but just barely holding on to it after having a bit more of a significant advantage at 4-2 earlier on to start this half off. Let's see if they are still going to be able to capture that one by winning things out once again in their own regard here, or if CYCLOPS is truly going to be able to close the gap now. So it's going to be that slow opener yet again from SANDBOX. Expect 1 or 2 players to try and work their way in through that basement angle or another direct access point to begin taking map control, but as we have already seen for the previous 2 to 3 rounds now, no immediate follow-through will more than likely take place from the members of SANDBOX to try and hunt anyone down within this first minute or so. Expect another about 45 seconds of drone and kind of setup here from SANDBOX before the action really gets started. can see, of course, Good Boy wrapping his way back around. Nearly is able to line up some shots against the players on the top of blue stairs, but ultimately just succeeds in scaring those players away. Chibisu, that we're now looking at, was the one taking that battle just a few seconds prior, but has backed around the corner, of course, to the relative safety of the piano area, and now Black Ray has been prompted because of those members from SANDBOX being baited onto the inside of Library. One of them will be shut down as they step just a few steps too far onto the outside of it, and to the waiting arms of Black Ray's Nitro. Thankfully, there is a trade set up ready to counter that out pretty much instantaneously. Arukaze gets the better of Black Ray for the exchange and brings it back to a 4v4.
Oh, what a shot from Demic, though, as he'll shut him down from up top. Still not a strong enough position to try and get this plant down, though. Just simply be cleaning up some of the loose ends that they had over inside of Bar. Do have the frag grenade to try and work things out inside of site, though, and clear up this wall for them to try and get this breached out with Demic. Still plenty of time to try and process this map here as well. Two Cyclops players awaiting SANDBOX's next move on the top floor. So one inside of site 2 is going to be Chibi to strike. It's going to be a big pickup 2 onto Mephi, who's been able to hit their mark at least, you know, in some of the more, you know, stronger moments here throughout the majority of these rounds, especially with that 417. Looks like they're initially actually going to go for this top floor break here. So they're going to try and assist NV Taylor on this clear. But this timer, it dwindles. This situation is only getting harder. Cyclops, no way to try and counteract this play going down. Anaton going to go for the late rotation now, and this could get interesting.
Anaton was not really much of a choice there. Either that or he's going to have to sit in the corner and just wait out his fate. So backs away and hopes of maybe making a late play with the Nitro, chucking it back up, as more than likely SANDBOX are not going to be able to commit that deep into the site. With that said, though, the Toxic Babes are potentially going to send the planter out of Nitro range. We have to see, as there's the toss-up, but like I said before, the Toxic Babes have moved Demic out of position. Thankfully, Anaton still able to negotiate at least one kill from down below, just outright from the SMG-11. Now Demic tries to take further positioning after the play, and he'll pay the price for that one, as Suzu immediately takes down Demic, leaving it all on Arukaze. Like I said before, the plant, though, has gone down, so as long as he can maintain this position, it is still winnable. The first of 3 kills now being found, but he does not read at all into the rotation, back down to the main metal stairs that Chibisu takes, which reopens the pathway, of course, for Anaton to get the counter defuse and for Cyclops to tie us up at 5-5.
Defender mission successful.
SANDBOX, oh my goodness. SANDBOX hitting those awkward roadblock that they possibly could there, John. That's really what we saw. Cyclops able to just hold kind of a pseudo position where SANDBOX didn't really feel comfortable trying to push themselves forward to clear out the top floor or end up breaching the wall onto site and trying to apply pressure there. So just kind of sat on their hands there for a little while, and it ended up leading to, well, at least one of their demises, and later on an entire round going the way of Cyclops instead of what should have been a SANDBOX domination, honestly, especially with their early round picks that we saw them procure. There was really no reason that they couldn't have translated that there, but Cyclops given way too much rope, and they take way more than an inch.
And so, that now makes it either team's game truly here. If we can see either one pick up just a 1-to-1 exchange, of course, to trigger OT, or an outright double pickup to be able to win things out. At the bitter end of regulation, it could really go to either team at this point, as Cyclops, unfortunately, or rather, SANDBOX, unfortunately, have finally lost that advantage for the first time in this map, and of course, in the series, as we are only on map number 1. Both these teams looking to pick up 3 maps in order to be victorious here today. They'll get a massive boost to their charitable prize pool donation they're going to be able to give out at the end of the game today, on top of the fact that, of course, the winners will still be getting that qualifying slot into the G8 Festival, where we have a heck of a lot more prizing that'll be going directly to the teams themselves. Slow starts yet again, nope, as SANDBOX still try to build up their initial positioning, so we have quite a bit of pressure built up towards Ego there, so may try to see some additional control being taken in that area. However, as you guys may be noticing now, as we just check things out from Suzu's POV, he's got a Nitro and quite a bit of resistance primed to this one. The Nitro not even actually going to be needed. It is still utilized. You see the explosion go off, but Good Boy going to be downed irregardless, just by a little bit of an aggressive push that comes in by Cyclops themselves.
Able to find the Ash as well, but Chibi not comfortable with pushing it any farther. Cyclops, I think that they've done some soul searching, John. They've been able to find their more aggressive tendencies, and it works out beautifully for them. Mephi goes down, and Good Boy also gone to the wind. Black Ray will be the only donation that they have to give up for this. Arcoli able to stave off elimination.
Echo Drone is going to get spotted out there by Envy Taylor as he just barely catches it wrapping around the corner. So we'll remove some of that power from Aniton. But I doubt he'll be missing it too much. Okay, maybe a bit more now. This Arcoli is going to get found out trying to wrap himself over by the ego window. Finally, Arcoli getting a little bit of counter to that pressure, which has been alive from Arcoli's POV for quite a bit on the outset of this round. Now able to re-equalize things. Still with the issue of Envy Taylor being at low HP, so he's kind of limited in terms of what he can potentially set himself up for, but overall, at least a bit more palatable now that things haven't brought down to the even 3v3. SANDBOX, though, still with a lot more pressure to clear back out all the way across the map. This is, of course, a basement hold from CYCLOPS. CYCLOPS played a very expansive game on this round, and now paying the price for it in some extent, as they did lose that 4v3 in part because of how kind of difficult this setup is going to be to maintain into these dying moments of the round. SANDBOX as well with clearance around at least the living room hatch, but here we go. The double-edged sword of the setup comes back to help CYCLOPS a little bit there. Chippy's able to give away some free damage onto Arukaze, limiting his own HP down to about half of what it originally was now as well. Demic tries to open a second pathway into Wine. Envy Taylor is purely looking like he's going to be on flank duty and potentially setting up for this nade toss as well to put some extra pressure onto the site. Setup won't work though, as we have plenty of mitigation positioned deeper into the site here. Aniton and the rest of CYCLOPS just simply waiting out the timer, waiting out that eventual play from SANDBOX, and here it comes. A two-piece picked up by Aniton, leaving only Envy Taylor here with a bit of a late rotate, as of course he was priming those nades a few seconds ago. Not much hope for the clutch to come through here, and time is going to be expiring in just a moment. It's a safe bet here to see CYCLOPS indeed getting themselves to map point first.
Strong plays here from CYCLOPS yet again as they're able to shut down the full entry game of SANDBOX. Yes, they might be able to process the walls and at least get some things open, but CYCLOPS able to play the crosses to such a strong degree, just like we saw right there inside of that clip. No real chance for CYCLOPS to try and get into the site and get those big kills, you know, opening up an opportunity for them to try and get a plant down. It's been CYCLOPS time and time again, it seems so far here, to try and clean up these later portions of these rounds. And here we are, John, what we talked about earlier on. We are only one round away from CYCLOPS claiming this in regulation.
But it is indeed just that one round. They have to do it in regulation itself for an outright victory of 7-5. SANDBOX can very easily claim revenge on this upcoming round as well and take us to overtime still. Not necessarily something that either team necessarily wants to play into probably at this early phase of the tournament, to be immediately getting looped into these extended overtime maps when you consider they potentially may have to play 4 more of these to get through the course of the series, but not a whole lot obviously that they can do to avoid that potentially if it is thrusted onto them. So going to make the best of what could be a bad situation here if that is going to be the true play case for the majority of this series. SANDBOX, of course, putting Good Boy onto a very powerful operator yet again. We already saw him make some good moves on the Nook, and just in general, the way he's been playing as that kind of silent lurker, constantly hunting for that opening kill. Obviously, that's a very perfect match for the Nook's play style, so should be able to see some good contribution come in from him, and maybe, just maybe, give SANDBOX a little bit of a boost needed to trigger that OT.
Well, the key thing is what is the change up for SANDBOX? You really don't want to see them slow down and get too cautious. That's what you're always concerned with a situation like this. But they are being at least patient here. They've got some crosses dedicated for the map, seeing if there's any easier fish that they can potentially try and catch out of this river at the time being. CYCLOPS not really wanting to try and fight fire with fire, though. They want to try and force SANDBOX into trying to clear the map and seeing if they could try and get some kills of their own on this entry game. But it's actually going to be Arukaze that strikes first as single rotation comes through here on Trophy. And they're looking for another one, but Arukaze, he's on double duty. He'll knock down both, and CYCLOPS might have just given the round over, forcing OT.
Very good possibility indeed for that It's good boy, and the rest of SANDBOX set themselves up for success yet again. CYCLOPS faltering just when they needed to hold themselves together here, but it has been the nature of what we've been seeing so far. Anaton potentially trying to timing play his peak, but he's already missed the opportunity on the first player that's moved in. Chibisu finally strikes back for CYCLOPS, and Anaton still looking for an opportunity to frag out from behind the bed inside of bedroom itself, but Suzuk with some great timing now catches the second kill, re-equalizes things. Anaton did try to leap back out, but he has now been caught on the rotation away from that back behind the bed position he was playing at before there. Already seen him taking some damage when he tried to go for the peak itself, but SANDBOX had locked in control of that one over by Solarium. Now combined with Arukazi's angle here on the rappel for bedroom, should be able to see a push from SANDBOX to try and localize a plant. Chibisu, of course, getting the next brunt of damage from that repelled angle here as he tries to force back some of the pressure coming into that bedroom area now. Fortunately unsuccessfully, so puts a lot more pressure back onto Suzuk. And indeed, Demic, as he pushes forward here, is not able to actually finish off Chibisu. Thought for sure that one bullet, would have gotten the job done, but now Suzuk battles back in himself, picks up another response kill, brings it down to the 2v2. Both teams losing a lot of HP in the process of this, and Suzuk just a masterclass of patience here right now. Baits out the time for his teammate to come back in. However, the down will not be completed. It'll be the peak instead from Suzuk to get it done as CAD lock down the map and give themselves a victory here at the very bitter end of regulation. 7-5 as they complete the comeback. A big congratulations to CYCLOPS.
Very, very well done from CYCLOPS, the backbone of their setup, standing the test of time in this game, and we'll have to see if it continues on throughout this series. But as of right now, looking so very strong, at least through Chalet, up against SANDBOX.
A big victory indeed. Took him a few rounds, of course, to kind of hit the ground running as we saw some struggles initially, but was able to rebound very nicely. And indeed takes full control here on the final rounds of the map. We're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we'll have your analysis desk get you ready for map 2 of the grand final here for the Korean and Japan bracket of the Gamers Without Borders event for 2023.
Gamers, UNICEF and I need you by our side for a real-life mission. A mission to protect the rights of every child. After news cameras have left, UNICEF is here. Every day, everywhere, but particularly where it's needed most. Did you know that more than 170 million children need UNICEF's humanitarian aid this year? At Gamers Without Borders, many of you have already chosen UNICEF, and I thank you for that. Choosing UNICEF is the easiest and smartest decision you can make, because you're investing in a child. And investing in a child guarantees lifelong returns, not only for that child, but also for their community and for our world.
The divisions in the world are stark. Recent years have shown some of the largest natural disasters ever in history. And that really hits hardest the people who had the least to begin with. These people need help. It would be a real tragedy if all these advances in science and health and technology only benefit people in a position to pay for them. There should be no lesser standard if you happen to be poor. These problems can be overcome. Direct Relief is a humanitarian, nonprofit health organization. The focus has been on the least fortunate, most vulnerable people. On a good day, things are tough for a lot of people in this world and in this country. And what we can do is mobilize private resources for their benefit and make it available free of charge. We're the first nonprofit in the history of the United States to obtain accreditation just like a commercial distributor. And it's been expanded geographically to every country in the world and every state and territory of the United States. What's now Direct Relief officially was started in 1948 as a private effort of a war immigrant businessman named William Zimden. The basic guiding principles of a war immigrant businessman really influence what Direct Relief has done ever since. And they begin with just serving the people who need help. We have this great privilege of engaging with people who come in from very different backgrounds, but with the same purpose of trying to just do something good. It doesn't matter if you're typing or talking on the phone or working on the warehouse floor. They're all part of an effort that means something bigger, and that is the fuel that kind of keeps you going. It gives you some sense that there is a way to make meaningful progress, even for a little organization that started at a kitchen table, but that's what provides motivation in life. The notion that many people, just by virtue of where they're born, the color of their skin, the country they live in, they're going to get sicker, they're going to stay sicker longer, and they're going to die sooner. That's pretty good motivation. These issues are too big for any one organization to address. We really work hard to honor these guiding principles, invite people to participate, and we are sure thankful for the thousands of people across the country and world who have become part of Direct Relief by virtue of their participation.
Progress is a race that has no end. After every finish line, another challenge awaits. How can we continue to push innovation in a sport at the forefront of technology? This is how. Discover how Aramco and the Aston Martin Formula One team aim to meet Formula One's sustainable fuel targets. Aramco, powered by How.
Welcome back to Gamers Without Borders. We currently have a leader. One map in and CYCLOPS are looking strong. Now, Jacob, there's still plenty to go, but, you know, what were your thoughts as that map progressed?
Dude, this is the exact same problem that I saw with SANDBOX from yesterday. That game against Crest was a problem for one reason. They were playing too slow. So I see the exact same problem rearing its ugly head in this matchup, and I wonder how long they're actually going to have to fix that mistake. I don't really know if they have it in them, because this feels like the kind of fundamental problem that a team like SANDBOX is going to carry with them into the next epoch, because that's how long this thing has persisted with them. I think CYCLOPS are just the beneficiaries of a really, really good situation right now, and their path towards qualifying for G8 is the clearest I think it's ever been.
Yeah, man, it's so sad. It's the same tale always from SANDBOX. They start off great, you know, they get that first defensive half, 4-2 split defending on Chalet. You're laughing at how good things are going for you. And then you switch to attack and everything falls apart. It really feels like there's just this mental block on SANDBOX where they can't actually get things going. They can't take that initiative to push forward and take fights. And man, that was just unfortunate one to watch, especially for their own map pick in a best of 5.
We got some cool highlights going on to my right in the amazing spaceship that we call a studio. But the Chalet map pick did seem like it was a bit of a curveball for SANDBOX, and it didn't pay off. So now we could see SANDBOX even further on the back foot as we move to CYCLOPS' map pick, Jacob.
Yeah, I think the weird thing is it's not even like this map played out in a way that we haven't seen several times before, because a 4-2 half is a dime a dozen on a map like Chalet, and it's a matter of who plays into the utility more on defense. That was the thing I was most curious about. So if SANDBOX could get 4 rounds, what could CYCLOPS do? The answer is 5. The answer is considerably more, because they weren't able to read into CYCLOPS' utility play. There was a smoke, a frost, and it felt like a Womai, a Warden, and a Zombie basically almost every round. around. And when you have that kind of utility combination almost every time, and you have the power of attack or repick, you'd think you'd be able to find a way through that formula and pick off a team like Cyclops at the source. But SANDBOX only win one round on their attacks, and they give Cyclops round after opportunity over and over again. It just feels like for SBXG, it's kind of a tale as old as time.
Yeah, we were leaning into Aniton kind of, in our pre-show where we were talking about how impressive his performance was yesterday. And, all eyes were him. And let's say for the first 5 or 6 rounds, I don't think anyone really was standing out on Cyclops. And then they kind of turned it on as, they started to get momentum after those first 5 or 6 rounds, right, Jesse?
Yeah, I think that second half where Cyclops were actually winning on their defenses, it really did feel like a team effort. I actually thought Aniton, despite right middle of the pack, was one of the most impactful players. I thought his sight play, whether it was on the Echo or whether it was on the Mute, the rotations he was making were really, really good. You got to credit Chibisu as well, top of the leaderboard there. I would argue there's some rounds where they were losing on attack where Chibisu got some bait kills that weren't really impactful. But nonetheless, he's top of the scoreboard and he did play well, especially in that second half.
You call him like you see him. Yeah.
Well, Cyclops in attack, they slow rolled almost every time and then they blitzed in. It was essentially a 50-50 gunfight for most of the time. And we've got a cool little replay for you, Jesse, to talk us through from one of these blitz attacks, I believe, in round 5.
That's exactly right, Banks, because this is one of those rounds that I thought had potential, but it really highlights how important it is to give the defuse kit to the right person. Watch Chibisu here. He's outside a bathroom window and he has that defuse kit. The problem with bringing kit into bathroom window is you've got no good way to rotate down to kitchen after you're done with this top clear. So if this top clear doesn't go perfectly, and you'll see right in a moment here, it doesn't, Chibisu falls inside a bathroom. Now your kit is given up in a terrible position. There was no place for Chibisu to go here, and it leaves Aniton and Suzu into a terrible 2v2 where they're both clumped up on these solar stairs. If one of these two players, and Suzu often did have kit for Cyclops, if one of these two players had the defuse kit instead, they can rotate down the solar stairs. They're in a much better position. It's not free because Demic's got a shotgun above you, but it's a certainly much more winnable spot. Instead, you've got to go up against Demic in a box with a shoddy and SMG-11. He plays it so well, baits the pickup, flashes don't do anything to him. Really thought that was well played by the smoke, but again, having that defuse kit on the right player could have changed everything with that push. And that was one of those rounds that didn't end up mattering in the end because Cyclops did win the game overall, but it's those attacks that will punish you in tougher games.
We've also got a nice little head-to-head for you to show the best players from each team and to show a bit of appreciation for them, an excellent individual performance and also a little ego boost going into map 2. Jacob, does this seem fair?
Definitely seems fair. I think the point about Chibisu maybe having a couple of impactless kills is one that we can't necessarily discredit, but I do love the fact that he top fried when a lot of people were wondering whether he was the right fit for Cyclops. He was probably one of the best things that Fnatic had going for them. So to be able to pick him up and really fit him into this team with a lot of pedigree, I think it's great when he has performances like this. And we were talking about it, like Jesse and myself, I personally think Arukaze is one of the best players on SANDBOX. He just doesn't really get the opportunity to be utilized as effectively as he could. If he had a better core of guys around him, I feel like we would see SANDBOX win considerably more. Arukaze is not the problem. He feels like the glue, but you need guys like Envy Taylor to step up a lot more. We make the joke about how he's in his 30s. He's probably past his prime at this point. I don't want to say that about this man because he's been in the scene forever. But if Arukaze is doing the best on his team, it means guys like Envy Taylor need to do a little bit more and step up. So that is the thing I'll be primarily watching from SANDBOX in map 2.
You're not allowed to say that people in their 30s are washed now, guys, okay? I'll have a personal
Right, I complimented you earlier. I have to stick on brand now, yeah.
Well, Cyclops go into map 2 with that 1-0 lead, but it was a close match, so we're going to have to see what's going to be coming up next. We've got to keep this ball rolling and head back into this matchup. We've got map number 2 and Blue and Stokes waiting in the wings.
All right, thank you very much. It is indeed time, ladies and gentlemen, to get ourselves prepped and ready for the second map of this series. A potential 5-map gauntlet still awaits both of these teams, but at the moment, it is Cyclops running toward the top of that hill a little bit more quickly than their opponents. It takes them a few rounds to get warmed up. They weren't really seeing a huge amount of contribution from anyone there for the first few goes at it, but thankfully they were able to rebound quite quickly and are able to take the SANDBOX map pick away from them. Now we head, of course, into CYCLOPS' own pick, and they're feeling nice and confident about their chances to be able to take control of that. Isn't that right, Stokes? As you,
yeah, I guess we're staying blurry for this one, buddy. Yeah, well, I'm trying. We're doing what we can with these home broadcasts, you know what I mean? But yes, indeed, man, we're looking to see if there's potentially 4 maps still in the chamber here for us between CYCLOPS and SANDBOX. CYCLOPS currently up 1-0 after their victory here on Chalet. So excited to get into the second map and see if they can continue their little reign that they had going on near the tail end of that series, rattling off 3 rounds in a row to close out that map.
And so we'll be loading into that second map right now, ladies and gentlemen. SANDBOX's chance at redemption is going to be coming up nice and hot here. Need to see a bit more speed when it comes to those executes here. Otherwise, once again, same issues that we saw on map number 1 could very easily crop up yet again here for map number 2. Let's load into it, as it's going to be on Kafe for our second go-between of these 2 teams. Once more, this is the grand final of the Korean and Japan bracket of the 2023 Gamers Without Borders event. Huge sums of money on the line for charitable causes, and of course, a slot in each of our regions to go to the main Gamers 8 event. Just a few months' time, we're finding one of those 4 teams right here, right now, between SANDBOX and CYCLOPS. As we get ourselves into it, Monty is going to be the initial ban. Coming in from SANDBOX and CYCLOPS' response will be over towards a Nook. Makes perfect sense, and we were seeing quite a bit of that Nook play in the previous map from both teams.
I'm sure Jacob and Jesse are going to be keeping a tally of how many times Monty has banned out against Anaton here for CYCLOPS so far. So we're 2 for 2. We'll see if we get all of the maps here. We'll end up seeing how deep that Monty ban goes. Nook and Maestro going to be the bans here from CYCLOPS. We'll see what SANDBOX wants to bring out for their very last ban, but making quite a bit of sense, especially for Maestro and how prominent he is on Kafe. Really liking that ban here. And the Solus will be the last one to wrap this ban phase up with a nice little bow. So let's get in here and see what CYCLOPS can do with their very first offense on Kafe.
SANDBOX going for the bar hold first as well here. Another choice we've been seeing, actually, I believe, made by CYCLOPS as well in yesterday's matchup as the APAC team is a little bit more comfortable going directly to that third floor site to play into, whereas quite a few other teams have kind of resigned themselves away from going for that third floor site choice when you just consider the fact that it is quite played out, especially for the defenders from time to time, so you can have some difficulties being able to maintain that usual defender side of control there, prompting some of our teams sometimes to go for a different choice. But it's not going to be the case here for SANDBOX. They still feel a confident pick is warranted on this one, so they'll walk directly into it with a pretty expected number of operators for it as well. No real surprises. The castle is going to be turning C-plate, as obviously it'll give them the capability to kind of segment off a few areas, like, as you see, the rotation through Whitehall, and I believe it'll be used to bolster the position in Cigar even further as well with the way he's going to be throwing down the other 2.
5 seconds left.
Liking the setup that SANDBOX is going for here. Kind of a unique you know, get up here that we have going with the reinforcements, as well as some of the angles that we've seen adopted in, especially with, you know, a little keep a barrier that we have applied from Azami. Some angles that they're going to have to kind of worry about in a certain sense if they do end up positioning themselves not exactly in the most beneficial way. They could lose their lives, but we'll have to see how SANDBOX ends up trying to use this to get around CYCLOPS' game plan. It's going to be a dope call initially here, and we'll just see if CYCLOPS have any aggressive tendencies off of this.
Black Ray, not really much for him to do, unfortunately, with the blitz in hand and him being stuck on the roof. He's kind of just got to wait for the call for him to strike for the rest of his teammates, of course. And part of that will be based on how successful our Cully is with that little lurk he's got going in the middle of red stairs right now. Is already in a pretty forward position for this earlier phase of the round. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of actionable follow-through that he has just as of yet. That could very easily change over the next 30 seconds to a minute, though. So kind of going to be waiting to see. And this could be an interesting one from CYCLOPS, building up all this utility. They're going to hot drop into the hatch here and try to see if they can make their way into it. Good boy negates out quite a bit of that early momentum, but the rest of the team still able to flood their way through. No safe plant avenue having been established just yet, though. That's part of the big issue, but now our Cully is going to snap his side of this flank shut, cuts out any potential retake from Demic, and now Chibisu, also with control of attacker-sided balcony, takes out Mephi here, leaves it all on Envy Taylor. So the surprise booming strat to the inside of the window from CYCLOPS has paid off, and indeed will lock in the round as well as our Cully picks up the final kill.
think SANDBOX were just a little flabbergasted by the move that Cyclops went, for there. So ended up catching him off guard with the flood from the skylight. 3 players jump in. Only 1 remains at the end of the day, and it happens to be a Cyclops member. As they're able to win out that entire engagement and maintain their advantage and behind the long bar, able to shut down the resurgence of SANDBOX players as well, trying to come through for the assist. Really like the positioning from Cyclops there, especially for some of these players that were trying to hold on to the outskirts, like what we saw over for like Heaven as well as Christmas. So those were definitely the big positions that we saw out of Cyclops that were able to make sure that SANDBOX couldn't battle back into that round after their big aggressive jump into the skylight.
Quick read on the situation that came in there as well to be able to kind of encapsulate that quick of a take and kind of shut things down with regard to any take back we would have seen from SANDBOX's side. Even having our Cully work his way through the red stairs as well to kind of counter out the flanks we may have gotten from Cigar's side or potentially somewhere else on the map down below, as you sometimes get the player that is going to be lurking around 90 or potentially that train hallway also. So really well played strategy there from the side of Cyclops to be able to get themselves onto the board first. And now we just have to wait and see where they go from here. Obviously, the kind of choice is over in SANDBOX's court at the moment just because of the fact that they're on defense. So they need to dictate where they go from here. Do they call it as like a one-and-done fluke strategy and reattempt the 3rd floor hold? Do they rotate away from that one, as will more than likely happen, and go for what's, again, more than likely going to be their 1st floor hold next? All that is really up to SANDBOX at this point, as they need to figure out where things go from here.
Yeah, that's the good news, right? Like, things are completely open for them. There's no real restriction on where they can go or what their next move can necessarily be. So we'll have to see what they try and go with. But as of right now, it really seems like Cyclops is in the driver's seat. They're the one dictating the pace of these rounds. SANDBOX have really not been able to grab the reins again from what seems like they were able to produce on Chalet. So I'm really hoping that we can see them bounce back on this defensive side. Fingers crossed here for them, because this could get out of hand really, really quickly, and that's not exactly what you want inside of a best of 5. This is supposed to be a grueling experience. This is supposed to be something that lasts some time, not something where one team blows the other out of the water. It's like, all right, we were here for 2 hours, guys. Nice little scrim experience.
At the same time, though, obviously Cyclops is that team coming into this one with a little bit more, at least in my opinion, of kind of the T1 XP playing at those international events and whatnot, but not by a huge margin. SANDBOX obviously contends against that to a pretty good extent at this point as well. The amount of appearances they've been able to make at international events, just again, once again, working over those same issues that they have been dealing with, even outside of this specific event. Thankfully, on the defensive side, those issues are a little bit less apparent, so I'm going to try and quickly correct on the mistakes made in round number 1, or rather the inability to counter out Cyclops' strategy from round number 1, and try to take control now of a new site, which they've gone for down on the 1st floor here for Kitchen.
I'm liking this from Cyclops. I really hope it sticks, especially with this glass plate coming in. Black Ray is going to be adopting the blitz so far. We'll see if any of that changes up. But for SANDBOX, as you said, it's going to be a kitchen defense for them, and they're bringing the usual cast of characters, especially with the Kaid working his way in. Have some laser gates is going to be the more unique thing here, as they try and make sure some of the soft paneling isn't nearly as accessible for the offensive side. Won't have to worry about it too much from the defensive end, unless they try and toss something through it. But past that, though, have everything else really necessary to try and lock up some of these more hard-fought positions around the map, especially things like a bakery here. That's going to be Mephi's job as of right now. Really surprised that Good Boy hasn't applied any of the Kiba barriers here. Looks like he's over inside of what is the main kitchen bases as of right now, so we'll have to see what he wants to potentially do with his utility a little bit later on.
Now, normally I'm quite critical of a glass pick in most situations here, but I actually feel like just because of how horizontally the site is going to be played, even from the defender's own setup, it could have the capability to work really, really well when you consider those incredibly long sight lines that he'll have to play into, and obviously the easy capability that he has to set his smokes up to play his gun from the inside of those two. It's just all about how Anaton's going to be having to set himself up and how his teammates may be supporting that angle when it comes time to follow through with the executes. We'll once again follow up with Anaton a little bit later on in the round itself, as the focus is on other players right now, such as this front door entrance we're attempting to see being made by our Cully, although he's having some issues with the utility mitigation that's been set up by the defense and just the general presence that's here near Whiskey. Anaton still strikes first, though, as now we're back to focusing up on him and Chibisu as well, as we've got a two-tier take going on here. The melee from the Blitz actually misses, and Black Ray ends up going down because of that one. Mephi is able to turn it back around, but he's quite literally the only one that wins his fight, and Anaton quickly trades that one back out here, as it's otherwise a very successful take from Cyclops yet again to put their second round on the board.
Cyclops time and time again able to best SANDBOX in these crucial moments. Some big kills coming out from them and no plant necessary, just all lethality all the time. So able to quickly dispatch SANDBOX here in the second round, and SANDBOX sent reeling back to the top floor, John. They have to try and make an adjustment here, as I don't think we're going to be seeing the same play that we saw at a Cyclops the last time. That's kind of a one-off type of trick, you know, coming in from this skylight, so we'll have to see what they can do with this follow-up round.
Things don't work on the rotation downstairs. They'll make the return to the third floor hold for SANDBOX and hope that the second attempt up here goes a little bit better this time. Black Ray is still keeping the Blitz in check, so let's be curious to see how they try to work him, whether it's going to be maybe to like brute force Cigar or something else. Either way, they'll be attempting to make it work, of course, on this third floor clear. But there's going to be a few other adjustments, mainly just in the hard breach department, as it's not as necessary to bring a full breadth of hard breach here for the third floor clear. In fact, Cyclops don't feel they need any of it whatsoever. It does oftentimes help to maybe have an Ace or Hibana to knock out a wall or two, but it shouldn't necessarily be required, especially with the kind of booming entry power we're seeing from Cyclops right now. These very like one and done executes where they don't really need to set up the site to make them work. It's very much all being decided just off of their gunplay, and thankfully for them, that gunplay has been hitting its mark 2 rounds in a row so far.
Quick dispatchment of the castle barricade signals Cyclops at least initial signs of them being ready to go. Suzu's going to get caught off guard, and that EMP is going to trail down the side of the building because of that. Won't end up hitting its mark, as a lot of damage will be flooded his way, but not enough to be lethal just yet. Cyclops building up for this top floor here, and although I said it might not be the best thing to try and go for something twice, it looks as though this may strike again, but just in a little different vein. Isn't that right, John? Got some flashes coming in, got a shield play coming through here for Red, as well as a potential drop coming in as well. Nitro cells out, they're going to beat one down, and the trades now come through. SANDBOX will be able to at least pick up 2 here, and that's going to be Anaton gone as well as Suzu. Black Ray taking a lot of damage, but able to clean up a lot of utility, given the position that they were able to adopt.
Demic throwing everything and the kitchen sink at Black right there to try and stay alive, and just couldn't get that nitro cell activation off as quickly as he needed to. It's unfortunate, but it'll cost him his life, as well as the small Cigar positioning here. Now you're going to note there's not an easy transition they can make into main Cigar because of the castle barricades and the fact that they did not bring hard breach, so they can't hit Bana open the corner as you would normally see. Same for an Ace, obviously, here. So that is causing a little bit of a hold up from Cyclops. Overall, the entry power has worked out as they've been able to strike through with those 2 opening kills at the cost, unfortunately, of both Anaton and Suzu. So that is causing a little bit more delay. After a considerable delay, of course, they are able to finally wind a nade up, get it down into the bottom of the castle barricade, blocking off the inside of Cigar access, and now Black Ray can move forward, but it's our Kali to strike next here, grabbing Good Boy on the transition outside of Pixel. He carries it forward with a second pickup as well, now putting all the pressure onto Envy Taylor, holding a central position, so he's not out of this one just yet, but the Blitz going right into his face, pushes him into a corner where our Cully strikes once again to keep Cyclops in control. A 3-0 start to this game for them, and they're already up 1-0 on the series.
Cyclops have found what they do better than SANDBOX, and it's finding these fights inside of chaotic moments. The Blitz really helping with that, as well as just the play style they've adopted inside of these last couple of rounds, really assisting with that as well. You can just see it with the way that SANDBOX is kind of lost in the way of what Cyclops is doing, really. You know what I mean? It's just lost in translation for them at the current moment. No real assistance from their teammates. The crosses just kind of falling apart at the seams, and Cyclops constantly being able to exploit SANDBOX time and time again in these moments. Even though Cyclops doesn't really have the necessity to push themselves forward, you know, all that deep. They really are losing out on their hard breachers. They're losing out on a lot of key factors here, but you know, where there's a will, there's a way, and they definitely have the will right now to take these fights and be successful in them.
There's a will to constantly make Blitz work for their attacking lineup as well. Up, jinxed it. As yeah, we
had to speak. You had to talk.
Him soft blocked for like 3 rounds in a row, I think it was, if not 4. And finally, he has been re-picked away. Cyclops finally having enough fun with Blitz right there. They do have a little bit more of a traditional setup to kind of clear things out in that standard way when it comes to this kitchen takes. That's more than likely what we're going to see. Cyclops will probably give a little bit more respect over this time, as they've also spotted SANDBOXes going for that bit more of an extension up to the 2nd and 3rd floor, meaning that they can't play the kind of cheese horizontal clear with the Blitz anymore. They've got to clear things out a little bit more respectfully in their own regard, and that means Blackberry does have to go over to the sledge, try to open up some of those top-down angles more than likely.
Loving this angle here from Blackray. One you don't see all that often either. So definitely something that can catch off a SANDBOX player. They do end up trying to rotate in for Garage, but not going to be held too long from the sledge player. Rotate up towards the sky and try and assist their teammates. Suzu actually going to use some hard breaching those sledges right here, but I mean, hey, you know, it is what it is.
Shackle with the shotgun too.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we have some other means to try and get rid of this soft destruction, but it's fine. We won't give him too much crap about it. Suzu.
He's got 14 more of those anyway.
Exactly. It's Habana.
He's going to need like maybe 4 of them. Like.
So that's exactly it. Like, actually, how many of these things are they going to get rid of? It's just Arakaze that has Electro Claws, so I highly doubt that they run into any problem where 2 of those things are going to be crucial. So Anderson in the rest of the game will begin working on the 2nd story here and see if they can try and flood everybody back down towards the basement floor, the base floor rather. Not a single soul is going to exist though on the SANDBOX side around this space, so they'll just simply be working on the soft destruction as well as some of the hashes around the area for Cyclops up next.
A little bit tough on the Cyclops utility side of things right now. The Jackal's not really going to give them any workable intel. Maybe they can use this 3rd track to try and catch someone downstairs, but the actual like trackable footsteps are going to be pretty hard to track down. Things will be a little bit better now that we're starting to see Blackberry open things up, but this built up on top of the somewhat questionable use of a Habana here. As you're going to see, it's like electrical out as well, so it's going to have minimal effect as they just try to work it from the outskirts, and we'll see how much this pays off. That should have been 1 right there, but you need, I think, like 2 to 3 more. Here we go. They managed to find the electrical at least. So no, there's going to be another one that tricks its way in there as well. So yeah, the utility side of things is not really playing out that well for Cyclops. Thankfully, that's not what's won them the previous 3 rounds. It has been their raw fragging and to some extent entry power that has made that work for them. They're going to be doing this a little bit late though, with only about 30 seconds to go before they finally get that opening kill. They are certainly aware of this VIP player holding downstairs in the corner as well, on top of the usual first one that they've already spotted out for themselves. The peek comes through. Mephi holding on the inside of Bakery, and this is the big issue here. Cyclops just not really hitting their mark when it came to these opening entries and trying to make their utility work for them. So it's coming down to the wire, and more than likely SANDBOX finally going to be able to get their first run on the board on the timer, and indeed they will.
Successful defense finally coming through for SANDBOX. It just took the basement defense in order to get it done. And, well, it looks like they'll finally be able to get one over on Cyclops, even though Cyclops able to constantly battle back, it seems, up against SBX, but not this time around. Able to finally get the big round shut down. Now they just need to try and link some of these together, but we'll have to see what they can do with the rest of their defensive sites throughout Kafe. So far, it has not looked too hot for SANDBOX. Just some crucial moments going the way of SBX that time that just were too much for Cyclops to try and recover from. So we'll see if this befalls them yet again here in round 5, as we're going to transition into a mid-floor defense, but that also begs the question on how this top floor hold goes.
Once again, the top floor as we've seen, has already been a bit of an issue for SANDBOX to try and paint it, but that has been when they've played directly into it as a site, extending their grasp a little bit further onto the second floor hold. May give them that extra room to fall back upon, kind of rebreathe themselves, reset themselves, and potentially have a better re-engagement against Cyclops. Once again, the early rounds do not pay out in their favor, and we did see that once more, even though Cyclops finally end up losing control of a perfect game there on round number 4. That's largely because of some mistakes, at least in my opinion, in their operator lineup, and just a kind of a hesitance to push forward into the actual basement site, or the first floor site, because of those mistakes. So more so a very fixable issue for Cyclops here, and is not necessarily indicative of SANDBOX improving their own playstyle. The same issues that we've already seen on the first 2 third floor holds could pop up here now on the first second floor hold that we're going to get out of SANDBOX. Cyclops moving very quickly in a position to try and go for the red hatch drop as well now.
Well, Cyclops a little slower to the upswing from what we've seen from their previous rounds, just trying to make sure that they don't get punished this time around on their entry. A drone is going to go into the ether. I don't exactly know where it went underneath the train, but yeah, it's working out for them, so it's working out for us, right? Get the drones back out here for Cyclops on the top floor. Got some flank cams set up as well, just to make sure that none of these SANDBOX players can sneak in behind them. A lot of these flanks have been coming in decently late. I do think that Chibi just got hit by his own teammate as well, so make sure we're watching those barrels, boys. You don't want to be tagging each other up too much here. So Cyclops now looking to try and transition this over towards a top floor clear. Obviously do have a couple of bodies in the area, but does anybody have any eyes on the actual skylight as of now? It does look like we have one inside of Cocktail that could end up being the big game changer here on the mirror window.
Smoke to block out the mirror window, but Good Boy, of course, has the counter to that and follows it through as well. Grabs Black Ray. The blitz is unfortunately going to be counted out before he can have any effectiveness, but our Cully immediately snaps back and is able to equalize things down to a 4v4 by trading out onto Good Boy himself. Removes, of course, the counter they had to all this aggression. Mephi is put into a very tough position because of that. Already, of course, as you may have noticed, being reduced down to just that tiny little sliver of HP. Just a matter, of course, of trying to extend this timer as much as possible, but to be fair, has already wasted out that extra about 5 to 10 seconds even after the damage had been done. Mephi ultimately does finally fall, though, bringing it down to a 4v3 in the favor of Cyclops. However, similarly to at least a few of these previous executes, Cyclops is once again going to find themselves very low on time. So like I said at the beginning of the round, that potential expansion down to the second floor may have given SANDBOX that additional room to breathe that they need to shut down Cyclops in these final 20 seconds. Flashes are coming in quickly. Arukaze completely blinded out as a result of that one, but still has the lineup for the shot against Suzu and a follow-up on the Chibisu as well. Cyclops just once again with no confidence to make their play into the site. The plant will attempt to go down. Anaton is attempting to be the one to slap it down to the ground, and our Cully looks to hold the line, but no, Demic will retake instead, taking down not only the planter, but of course his support in the form of our Cully.
So very well done from SANDBOX. You had to worry about it there for just a split second, as they didn't really have that great of utility playing into the last couple of moments there, but they definitely had the firepower, as Cyclops cannot get the entries onto site in those dying moments to try and get a successful round. So instead, it's SANDBOX that are able to maintain pace through these last 2 rounds and try and bring this scoreline that much closer. Only 1 round away from tying it up on the defensive end.
You guys saw their crest in the in-game chat. Looks like we are having a few PC issues with the Cyclops guys, so we're just going to do a quick rehost real quick. Stick with us, folks, and we'll be back in-game as quickly as we can. Just a matter, like we said before, of getting those players back into the server nice and fast. But it is, once again, still going to be Cyclops kind of controlling the pacing of the game, starting to lose a little bit of that control, playing out somewhat similarly to what we saw back on map number 1, just a bit in the reverse right now, with Cyclops taking that initial control for themselves. Now, SANDBOX, after taking a few rounds to warm up here, they're starting to clap back a bit more and find their own ways to find solidarity inside of this matchup, of course, and start to put a bit more of a closer scoreboard on the table. I do believe we've got 1 round left in the half before we switch sides, and a good possibility that we could tie things up at 3-3. Keep this series close to the chest here as SANDBOX looks to try and find their response map here on the second one of the series to prevent, of course, already what is going to be map and match point, of course, for the folks on Cyclops if they end up taking control of this one instead, to go 2-0 in the first 2 maps.
Absolutely. It was looking a little worrisome there for them for just a split second. It seemed like it was just constantly Envy Taylor, the only one alive, trying to clutch things out up against Cyclops, and it was not working out time and time again. But now they're finally starting to get the big pickups on the initial entries, as well as being able to fend them off on site as well. These are two really, really big deals, John, when it comes down to it for SANDBOX, and something that we're really going to be looking towards when it comes to this last round, if they can potentially get it done up against Cyclops yet again. And that might be quite the tall task, especially if Cyclops are able to take some time here and discuss what they want to do with this very last round of their offense, especially for R. Cully. I believe he's currently 9-1 right now, just suffered his very first death in that last round, so they are still looking quite lethal across the board.
May have like one or two more deaths, of course, because I think we have the one rehost that we potentially did after round one there. So we're missing a couple stats because of that one. Obviously, once again, for anybody who is not super familiar with Rainbow Six, our stats are going to be reset. The in-game stats, that is, as a result of this rehost. So when we jump back in game, you're going to see a lot of zeros on the screen. Just ignore most of those, as that is going to be inaccurate information. Of course, we'll have a new lobby for ourselves. Should just be another moment or two away, folks. Usually these don't take all that long. We should make sure, of course, that we have the full members of CAG in the server and not suffering from any PC issues. I believe one of them said they had to restart things. So CAG will get themselves back into it, and we'll continue to move forward once again, looking to see if they can get that closeout, or if indeed it's SANDBOX's time to shine here, getting a bit more revenge on CAG's own map pick to make the series just a little bit more interesting there. Harcully, of course, being the one to constantly get in the way of things, like Stokes mentioned, having his first blunder in that round, is not really able to piece together the clutch in the way that he needed to be able to do, although came very close, 1 kill away, and he would have been able to get the job done. And we really saw the planter close out on that one as well. Just a little bit too much of a snapback from the clutch over on SANDBOX instead, so they were able to take control of that one instead. We are, however, folks, going to go to a quick break. It looks like that rehost is taking just a little bit longer, so stick with us. We'll be back in just a second with the continuation of the game.
제 시즈에서 가장 삭제하고 싶은 오퍼는 일단은 녹이라고 생각합니다.
If I can move one operator in the game, will be Grim.
Jaeger or big info op like Valk Echo would definitely have a big impact in the game, and it would shift the meta a lot. So that'd be interesting to see.
Any operator in the game, it would be Blackbird.
If I would remove a Raider from the game, it's probably Azam because she's a little broke.
It'd probably be Mira.
I would remove Monty.
Costain.
Zargum. Villa.
Always been Bank.
시즈 오퍼레이터 중에서 실제로 갖고 싶은 가젯은 일단 그래도 역시나 발키리 이제 블랙아이가 가장 좋지 않을까.
One gadget in real life will be Lesion, so I can protect my back.
I think if I could have any operator's gadget in real life, I think Frost would be a great pick. Some easy home security. Never need to worry about someone jumping in your windows.
Probably one of the I would choose to have in real life is the Sledgehammer. Yeah, you can like break anything almost.
If I can have any gadget, I don't know why. I'm just going to go with the first one. I thought it was Yana. Just being able to clone myself sounds pretty cool.
Rainbow Six Siege operator's gadget in real life. It probably have to be maybe Nook.
My favorite bomb site to protect, it's a basement on Oregon. I think it's easy to protect with only 2 stairs.
For me, is the bunker site for Oregon. It's just the easiest one. Sometimes you have a 3v5 and you can still win it in a pretty easy way.
My favorite bomb site to defend is probably AV on Villa. Just a fun bomb site to play.
My favorite bomb site defense is probably Locker's basement, because again, I think there's just a lot of variety. Like you could roam, you could hold server, you could play full bunker, and now there's like these little half roams.
아마 이제 디플러스의 우기맨 한번 골라보고 싶습니다. 뭔가 좀 풍채가 좀 약간 좀 우락부락하고 일도 잘할 것 같아서 우기맨이 가장 좋을 것 같습니다.
Yeah, so I'm going to say like PSK. He has like some, how can I say, he knows how to do some barbecue, he knows how to fish, and he will make us survive, you know?
If I wouldn't need to, it would probably be Alamo. It's because it would be fun.
I was stranded on a deserted island. I'll stick to Coach. Let's go with Call Out, just because I think he's the GOAT. He's up there.
If I was stranded on an island, I'd probably have to bring Call Out with me, you know?
he's just a strong man, you know.
If I was stranded on a desert island, I probably want Hungry with me. He's always an upbeat guy, and I think he knows how to get out of a tough situation. So I think he'd be a good guy to bring along with you.
And we are back once again, ladies and gentlemen, with the Rainbow Six Gamers Without Borders Korean-Japan Grand Finals between CYCLOPS and SANDBOX. CYCLOPS currently in the lead, both inside the map and in the overall series, currently with a 1-0 map advantage over SANDBOX and a 1-round advantage over them inside of our second map here. Looking to make it 2-0, but the past 2 rounds have gone handily into SANDBOX's own control, so maybe a sign of things to come potentially with SANDBOX continuing to try and turn around their currently negative score. Let's see if they can get the job done, of course, as they are back to the 3rd floor, where CYCLOPS have been able to control every previous attempt here so far.
Yeah, looking to set up a solid defense against what could be an aggressive front here from CYCLOPS. The dough could be coming in, especially with the Lion here. It's saying quite a lot about what they want with the round and says quite a lot about what SANDBOX could potentially want for themselves. Mephi with an aggressive look, at least initially. He'll throw himself back into small bay because he doesn't find a single dang thing out towards the western front. Looks like it is going to actually be a southern assault here from CYCLOPS instead, as they look to insert themselves here on Kafe for the very first time in round 6.
I was adjusting some settings on my feed there, but as far as I can see, Mephi didn't even have anyone spawn on that side, even from the looks of things. So just a complete miss at the end of the day. But thankfully, because there was no spawn action on that side, very little risk to him as well. Was able to hop back into the building with pretty much no consequences to that, except for the immediate reveal of his position. But obviously, again, CYCLOPS not really able to rotate themselves into a position to punish that. So he'll be more than able to rejoin the action with the rest of SANDBOX in a few moments here. For CYCLOPS, though, it is that slow usual setup from them. They have, once again, just like we saw for some of these other site attacks, have gone to a bit more of a traditional lineup. However, that has not had the best results so far. So we're going to have to wait and see if things pan out now on the 3rd floor assault for CYCLOPS. Already we're going to see Chibisu line himself up for the potential pinch of a player on SANDBOX, rotating themselves over by the dining room or fireplace area. Chibi has the intel for that player, but just can't get the timing right here on when he's actually trying to strike forward with it. As a result, SANDBOX continue to kind of circumnavigate away from this one and continue to waste out plenty of the clock too. Already about half of the round gone, and CYCLOPS barely have anything under their control except for parts of the 2nd floor, which aren't going to be too relevant to the actual site take just yet.
It really depends on what they can do for breaching as of right now. They don't have any breaching charges. They do have some impacts and some rounds they can try and abuse, but they do have these kind of tidbits off on their own, and that's the big issue right here, is they really haven't gotten important control upstairs, right? They're not too deep to where they can really try and fend off some of these, you know, stronger positions that have some effectiveness going down towards those basement areas. And it's making it really, really difficult as this defensive matrix has built itself up, but now Black Ray is going to start knocking it down as Anakin will add to the puzzle as well. 40 seconds remaining, and we've seen CYCLOPS in these last minutes. They've been absolutely furious. They'll take down yet another. SBX, not a single adjustment in the line. No one really making a rotation. Demic, he's down low, but the last one's dead on sight. Demic caught between a rock and a hard place. Anakin, what? It's a triple kill for Anakin on the round, Blue. It doesn't make any sense, but does it have to? The CYCLOPS get the round. It's 4-2.
A massive domino effect yet again working against the favor of SANDBOX here. CYCLOPS simply just searching desperately for that 1 or 2 kills to open up a pathway for the rest of their team to move forward. While they've been denied it on the previous 2 rounds, the most recent one, of course, it works into their favor yet again. And kill after kill after kill, SANDBOX just cannot maintain their presence there on the 3rd floor. And as a result, lose control of yet another round, giving a pretty massive advantage over to CYCLOPS, considering it is, of course, Kafe here. A 4-2 advantage from the attacking half. There's nothing to scoff at as far as CYCLOPS is concerned here. So just 1/2 of the remaining rounds are all they need to control, and they will take a second map already inside of this series and set themselves up for series point if they can control 1 of the next 3 maps we will need to play after this one. CYCLOPS, of course, rotating themselves immediately into that same 3rd floor hold. This is going to be, once again, just kind of the APAC playstyle to go to this site first, whereas other teams in other regions have chosen to move away from this one. Both SANDBOX and CYCLOPS feel it is going to be a confident hold for them. They will incorporate the mirror into the lineup immediately, which is something that we did not see SANDBOX necessarily doing, so it's going to be a little bit of a different take on things. But a lot of other similarities aside from that, such as the, of course, castle barricades to kind of block things out over towards Cigar and other parts of this 3rd floor setup.
Scary situation now right in front of SANDBOX as they're looking to try and bounce back and start claiming some rounds on this offensive side and really claim a map here. I mean, if this goes the way of CYCLOPS, this could be a pretty straightforward affair from here on out for them, and a pretty bleak ordeal overall for SANDBOX. And, well, it looks like it might be that already, as I believe it was a quick entry here from SANDBOX. Good boy. I don't know if he flew in white stairs or what have you right here, but either way, he's dead and gone as he's been taken out by Arcoli on the mid floor.
That's all the nades gone too. No secondary set for anyone else on SANDBOX. So
where's the assistance for this? That's the big thing here. Is it's just there's no other person in the area to really assist this play.
Good Boy has generally been like the solo lurk, even on like the Nook, when obviously Nook wasn't banned out on map number 1. So it does kind of make sense considering that playstyle that Good Boy would make his own moves. But here we go. We can see where the initial entry was. But you're correct. At least from that position, we should have seen a second member of the team supporting that push in some way, shape, or form. And just obviously did not get that. So perfectly correct question to come from you there as to why we did not see greater support to that push and at least an attempt to trade that damage back out.
And, you know, even past that, also no logic bombs existing for SANDBOX anymore. They've kind of put all their eggs in one basket here, Blue, and don't exactly think it's going to pay off. Arcoli once again culling SANDBOX. Time and time again, they're caught off by themselves. The rest of the team, they're over here. John, another player is still just trying to find themselves a kill down low off on an island, and it's not really assisting the squad. But Envy Taylor will be the first one to get the big pickup inside of Christmas for his team. Going to be a big adjustment here from CYCLOPS, and that mirror window will at least be able to read out 1 on ticket. Has to worry about the pixel swing, though, as it's pretty tight-knit over here. Has to worry about this Nitro Cell game coming in for the offensive perspective, is could spell demise for them on this entry. They do have a lot of stuns still to play around, though, potentially dislodging some of these players, but those mirror windows are going to do a bang-up job of making this a playable situation for CYCLOPS.
Yeah, as you said, Cyclops certainly with full control over the situation, especially considering the kind of two-tiered setup they have to defend Cigar itself. SANDBOX actually to circumvent that, unfortunately, predictably so, and that leads us into 2 more kills going into the favor of Cyclops. One for the Nitro to deny the plant, another one to take out the Overwatch, of course, directly via gunplay. Demic is all that remains, and it's not going to stay that way for very long. Black Ray swings out over onto attacker balcony and shuts that down nice and quickly, as it's still Cyclops with full control of the matchup, even with the side switch considered.
Yeah, Cyclops are chefing and SANDBOX are getting lost in their pretty fine sauce right now, my man. That's kind of what's happening. You know, our Coley with that nice pickup mid, and I think SANDBOX kind of got split-minded, right? Like part of the team is considering what's happening on that base or on that mid floor there and how they can kind of recoup that death that happened, and the other portion is looking to try and transition into the top floor and start progressing so they can actually build up towards an execute, because as we all know, Kafe takes a long time to process. There's a lot of things to clear out. There's a lot of angles to consider, a lot of utility to trade back and forth. So if you don't start doing that in good time, then you're more than likely just going to lose out the round that way. So it just seems like they really weren't too hive-minded there, not really on the same page, and just really ended up not boding too well for them, you know, when it comes to benefiting their, you know, end of round success. So unfortunate for SANDBOX there, but hopefully these next rounds can be a change of fate for them. You know, a little change of heart. They have a big line change coming in here, so this could be the start of something positive.
Like you said, pretty heavy lineup change for SANDBOX. Somewhat necessary because of the site choice, though. But there is actually going to still need to be quite a bit of vertical clearance. You guys can see it here now. Cyclops having at least 1, if not more, players committed to this extended room on the second and as well the third floor. And it's actually going to be joining the cap can being played by Chibi up here. Chibi has already actually pre-damaged quite a few of these barricades, so the members of SANDBOX, as you can see them building up on top of the bakery, are really going to have to be careful playing from this position, because there's a chance that someone from Cyclops just jumps out and tries to take them down pretty much at any moment, as long as this setup on the third floor stays alive. SANDBOX currently kind of just ignoring it and trying to force the issue forward. As we go up to the roof, you can see that Chibi's got a nitro cell prepped for absolutely no one, as SANDBOX are fully focusing on just taking that outright bakery control and trying to focus up on the site.
Well, SANDBOX mostly addressing things from the outside of the building as of now. Black Ray with a great opportunity here, but he won't be able to land the shot. Arukaze deadly with the RX. That's going to give SANDBOX a position that they were looking for inside a bakery.
Envy Taylor starting to move forward on the second as well, begin cutting out the rest of that extended setup. Good boy actually burning out half of the smoke right there as well from the magnets. His teammates can work it a little bit better. And a 1-1 exchange, but Good boy on point here with the trade. Swings in just when he's needed to catch Anaton, working his way down to the bottom of red stairs. Arcully tries to bring his own aggressive arc forward, but is caught out pretty much immediately there. However, saves his own life and backs away to fight another day, so he's not out of the engagement entirely just yet. Now it's really going to have to all come from Suzu, as we do also have Arcully being actively hunted down by the drone rug, although he's still looking for an aggressive opportunity. He's going to find one, a quick pickup, but now the counter angle from Envy Taylor. Suzu also losing a massive amount of HP for the one trade he will find, but bringing it down to a 1v2 does not leave him completely out of a clutch ability inside of this situation here. 1v2 thrusted against him. He is going to lose 2 out of 3 of those toxic babes as he tries to block out both the primary access points from the bakery side. He also will not be able to counter out that drone, which more than likely spotted him. And indeed, as Demic shuts him down, we get confirmation on that, as it's a confident start to things here after the first round goes a little bit bumpy from the members of SANDBOX to correct it on the second round and keep them in the fight.
Well, SANDBOX with some really early contributions in that round that ended up boding extremely well for them when it came to the latter half of this round. You know, the early kills, especially over towards Small Bake, and the easy translation for them from that point on, able to really work the trades, as you said, staying on top of those, especially for Good Boys Pop, and able to make it to where, you know, later into the round, they're able to maintain that man advantage going into it. Even though the smoke was able to slow things down just a tad bit, it wasn't anything that was out of reach for SANDBOX, all because of the early round victory that they had there with the big pickups that they got from the positions in Bakery, as well as some of the site picks. So very well done from them. And CYCLOPS not really feeling as comfortable as they were on that basement site previously. So they're going to switch some things up, send it towards the mid floor, which obviously, again, begs the question, what do you do with this top floor? It looks like they are going to try and extend things out here. Have the castle barricade as well as the mirror windows inside to try and slow things down in Christmas. And I'm absolutely loving this from Chibi as well. Kind of a little niche prone position here inside of stage, something that is seldom droned, especially with so much strong defensive positioning built up from CYCLOPS. It kind of distracts the offense sometimes, so could be something that Chibi ends up slipping past SANDBOX.
Slowing things down is definitely going to be the key to success in this matchup, or in this round specifically as well, just due to the way that we saw CYCLOPS fall apart on their previous defense. They're unfortunately getting caught in quite a few of those extensions and then leaving a massive window open for the rest of SANDBOX to fully focus in that specific round's case on the Bakery clear there, which really took away quite a bit of power from some of the usual go-to players, as you can kind of see from our scoreboard as well, like our Kali there, who actually we still have the scoreboard from the previous rounds. I thought we'd lose that on the rehost, so he's sitting quite prominently there at 15-2, just to kind of showcase how much power he's been able to dictate on these previous rounds. Arkaze is the story of the moment, though, as he just walks right up Whiskey Stairs. No one from CYCLOPS the wiser to that, and that's the problem. These small little flank angles are not being caught entirely, and that's causing quite a few issues for the early round. Anderson at least strikes back for one of those, but cannot maintain as Black Ray still has that pillar position. Arukaze also still in the neighborhood as well, as he picks up two more now, bringing CYCLOPS' defense down to just Anderson and Chibi in a 2v3.
We've seen how lethal CYCLOPS has been in the clutch before. This one, well within their right to still have an opportunity to take. Mephi with a nice rotation here, and he'll get it onto Chibi. And it's in low on HP, and don't think he has the chance to perform any preventative maintenance on this site. Try and stop them from getting this plant. Missile drone here, but this is also going to give up his position. No one looking for this aggressive swing just yet. Some pre-fires through, but once again, Anderson giving up the goods as to where he is currently, and so many bodies around. Big stuns, fully blinded, continuing to try and hold the cross, but it's going to be so easy for Arukaze. After those stuns, fully whited, nothing he can really do there. A nice little adjustment for the kill cam, and that's going to be all she wrote there for round 9, as we'll quickly transition into round 10.
It'll very quickly be an attacker-sided game. As a result of that, both teams now showing symptomatic problems on their defensive side. CYCLOPS not catching these sneakier initial entry moves from SANDBOX. And of course, SANDBOX themselves faltering in a very similar way back in the first half when we saw them on the defensive side, just not being able to stem the tide against some of that entry power from CYCLOPS, and then domino affected into quite a few other rounds to give them a 4-2 half. Very good possibility that we could see SANDBOX repeat that same level of success that we saw out of CYCLOPS, potentially trigger overtime, if not an outright win, if now it's going to be SANDBOX completing the comeback set to try and win things and give us a 1-1 scoreline. For CYCLOPS, though, they do make that return up to the 3rd floor here, where they already locked away their first round. So hopes maybe for redemption and still at least the safety of a 6-4 scoreline that would at least guarantee overtime for CYCLOPS if they truly are going to struggle to piece the rest of their defense together.
5 seconds left before.
Well, jumping into things now for the action phase. The castle barricades maintaining position around the top floor, making it more difficult for SANDBOX to get some of these important angles to break up these defensive spots. Arkaze currently 10-8, having a heck of a game for himself. Currently leading the pack when it comes down to it, past our Cully, who's currently 15-3. So both of these teams having their superstar, just seeing if there is enough players around them to try and potentially propel this team towards victory. 5-4 still here. Cyclops looking to get some more defensive rounds on the board. Able to at least get one right now, but definitely looking to try and get onto that penultimate point at the current moment. Do not want to allow SANDBOX to try and tie this up. This round's so very crucial to their story here in this best of 5.
Arkazi and the rest of SANDBOX here still biding their time, looking for that initial insertion they can make with relative safety to try and hopefully get them a clean kill as well here. Going to try to do it through utility also, but as you can see, no one really home from Cyclops here in the inside of this setup. Cyclops have realized that overextension is starting to become a little bit of a problem for them, so I think they have peeled away some of that pressure for themselves and are playing into a much more tight-knit, safer setup. That's not for everyone, obviously. You can see our Cully still is extended out quite a bit, and I also do believe we still have a commitment to the inside of the library for at least one member of the team. Indeed we do. It's Suzuk currently playing on the inside of that one. He's just been spotted out by a drone, so problems are potentially lurking in the future for Suzuk, as there is indeed going to be a pinch against him. Arcully tries to draw some of the attention away, but once more, good boy on that solo lurk continues to make the early entry mark for his team, and doubly so now, as he also gets Chibisu coming down the same angle as Arcully to try and trade it out unsuccessfully. Arakazi, the first member of SANDBOX, that runs into some real issues here as Black Gray drops down from the top floor to take him out with a shotty.
Well, CAG send it and see if they can potentially get the big swing onto SANDBOX, but not too much coming from it. Some nice kills, but Black Ray has something to say about that. Mephi with a nice one as well onto Anaton. The advantage still going the way of SANDBOX, the plant as well. Black Ray, he doesn't know where this plant's going down. A Nitro cell will go way too wide. Won't even deal the damage to the player in Cocktail, even though the plant wasn't going down inside of that space. So going to be a tie ball game between these two teams as Black Ray ascends White Stairs. Back onto the drone and the audio playing now for the Buck at the end of the hallway here. NV Taylor unable to get it done from Pixel. It's Black Ray tries to push a little bit deeper here. First crucial gunfight, but NV Taylor will quickly nip it in the bud. SANDBOX Gaming tie things up here on Kafe.
CIG lose control of yet another defensive round for themselves. A different issue popping up this time as well. They have a much better job piecing together their own setup so that they don't lose as much when it comes to that initial clear. There's still a glaring player just kind of sitting out in the open towards library that SANDBOX are able to set up an immediate pinch for. Arcully then becomes the initial victim because he has to rotate in and is forced into a fight that he potentially may have not actually wanted to take just due to the necessity of trying to save his teammate down below. And then the members of SANDBOX, I think, realized this, used it as a siren's call to drag more and more members of Cyclops to that part of the map where they slowly took them out one by one and eventually took full control of the round through overwhelming odds. Very well played from SANDBOX to find that counter, and it's now brought them all the way back from the brink here. 5-5 total tie, and Cyclops indeed using their tactical timeout to try and get the better of this one. It's do or die time now for them, as SANDBOX could be taking control past this point if not.
Yeah, the entirety of SANDBOX starting to show up, but the same can't be said about Cyclops. They had a lot of early considerations towards this game that really ramped up their round count, but now it's, the shoe is on the other foot kind of a situation. SANDBOX are well within their right to try and push this game to either OT just as a minimum or try and take this game wholeheartedly and get us tied up 1-1 in this series. Kafe, in fact, Cyclops' choice as well. So a pretty unique situation befalls us here. We'll see if Cyclops can get things done on this basement level now as they are seriously squirming for another round.
4-2 to 5-5, even starting out the second half with an initial victory. So at its best, a 5-2 scoreline for Cyclops now falls to pieces as a complete rotation goes all the way of the attackers here for 3 rounds in a row. Now the ties up completely. Cyclops, of course, being put onto the back foot here. Now with a lot of potential makeup work needing to be done to potentially course correct and still come out on top for that perfect 2-0 start to the series. And if not, of course, that'll leave us with SANDBOX in control instead. Arkazi stealing away a lot of utility from the front. Coat check entry here, already knocking out one of, I believe, the Banshees that had been brought in play from the defense. Indeed, that was the case. And of course, one of the laser gates also being hacked away now as well. That second Brava drone immediately going to find its use as I'll try to sneak it back in, see if there's going to be any utility mitigation. Thankfully, none of that present currently on the lineup for Cyclops, but was going there to try and see if there was any to take away. Nope, just another Banshee. And once again, that one will get sniped out as well. So that entire VIP setup going to lose most of its prowess now, as there's really nothing to hold back a SANDBOX clear on that part of the map.
Oh, locked inside of Christmas right now is Suzu, as he's constantly using these toxic babes to keep back the onslaught of SANDBOX. Suzu will be able to down Methy, and it's going to be the smoke that chokes him out. SANDBOX down a player in Cyclops. Finally, some pulse in these veins. Anaton, at least one here. It's going to be Chibi to try and transition down the stairwell, but it's going to be Black Ray to hit the mark instead. CAG looking so strong. Good boy, though, will shut down Anaton. Looking for one more, but he can't get eyes on quick enough. So very well done. He's able to take out the player on White Stairs. Arakaze tries to transition now in towards the actual physical bomb site. He'll get taken down. It's up to Demic. He'll be able to at least claim one. Gets the case picked back up as well. Has an opportunity here to try and go for a plant. He'll start her right up. Has that drone to at least watch his flank. Demic still with the plant. Can't get the angle. Here it comes for Chibi, and he'll get the frag. Cyclops will at least be able to guarantee overtime before SANDBOX are able to take this map.
The somewhat disorganized take we had there from SANDBOX is ultimately, at least from my perspective, what makes that round an ultimate loss for them. They had a great prep build-up in terms of the utility clear that was being used on those Brava drones to try and take out this player here, Suzu. But if they had a secondary pinch working its way in from the actual garage side, should have been a pretty easy kill. At worst case, a 1-for-1. But that does not end up being the case, and you can see it there. Suzu actually ends up surviving to the very bitter end of the round, even though he should have been the very first one to die. That's because he, once again, wins that initial fight and then refuses to give up that position. Everyone else from Cyclops, the alarms go off at that point as well, and SANDBOX never really change up where they are trying to put pressure across the map, so Cyclops just have the hard counter to SANDBOX's take when it comes to positioning, as they take the fight directly to them in that garage and White Stairs part of the map.
Cyclops able to once again win it out in a pretty chaotic round, and it seems like whenever the round gets a little bit messy, that's when Cyclops really tends to thrive. SANDBOX very, very clean when it comes to when they're able to actually build up to their execution or get some of these bigger picks earlier on into the round. But the difficulty comes when Cyclops is able to run amok of those things, and if that, is able to happen again yet in this round, this could be a decently quick 2-0 built up from Cyclops.
Once again, folks, just a little housekeeping note. You're probably already aware of it, but just for the 5 to 10 of you that did not catch this little detail, you can see it there at the top right. Best of 5. So 2-0 will not mean outright victory for one of our teams just yet. You do need that third map here. So Cyclops needs a little bit more, even if they do end up taking this one, to be able to come out on top of the overall series. We'll see, though, as that round has potentially been evading them for some time here. SANDBOX have certainly turned on the lights in their own kind of team play quite a few times here, and has been able to extend this game quite a bit as a result of that one. Just one more response round is all they need to trigger overtime here, and give us another pretty lengthy map, which is not something that the leading team will want to play into here. So expect Cyclops to look for that 7-5 closeout for a second map in a row to avoid those extra 3 rounds, that extra 10 to 15 minutes of play time here, as they try to keep their own personal player strength at the strongest it can be, and try to make the series as short as possible. So patience pays off, though. He misses the initial clear from Good Boy. Might have thought it was the Gemini ultimately.
And there's the drone right after. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, pretty realistic mistake. And as you said, there's for Stokes, the drone coming in just a little comically late, you could almost say, as it rolls past, just to see his teammates' now dead body on the ground.
Yeah, it's a reverse order of, the way that you would usually want to go about that. So a little unfortunate for SANDBOX, but You know, they've recovered from situations like this before, but this is where things begin to be problematic. Once again, John, we run into the same situation that we had previously with SANDBOX. They're addressing things as a single party and not as a team. And it's from the same positions as well. There's 3 people on top of red stairs. They're trying to recoup, and it's not going to work out because CYCLOPS can necessarily do whatever the hell they want with this game.
They're getting jumbled up in the doorway now. Even
exactly.
So
you have 5 bodies up against 3. I can now just practically kill myself. It doesn't really matter because there's still 4 other people to try and take these gunfights. So it's going to work out for CYCLOPS. They get some huge kills here. Envy, Taylor, and Demic both now rock in a hard place. Envy really needs to get on these drones. He's got 2 in his pocket. They got 40 seconds remaining. They don't even know where a single body is. They're just hoping somebody peeks a bullet and dies. CYCLOPS just simply has to hold these crosses and await their arrival.
No map control realistically for them to play off of here either, as they are really just stuck in that default staging ground the attackers will get access to.
No.
Here's the swing from Black Gray as well, and it's a perfect round from CAG to lock it in on map number 2. 7-5, followed up by now a second 7-5 victory, which will give them the 2-0 lead in the series. One more map is all that CYCLOPS need, and they will indeed be our regional champions here, earning the spot at G8 as well as the lion's share of our charitable donation prize pool here to go to one of our 6 pre-selected charities. Excellent play once again from CYCLOPS. Definitely a little bumpy when it came to the second half switch up and kind of piecing things together at the start of that half, but able to course correct here on these last 2 rounds and ultimately once again taking full control on round number 12. We're gonna go to another short break, ladies and gentlemen. Stick with us. Map number 3 is right around the corner here at the Gamers Without Borders Rainbow Six event.
It feels like there is a new crisis. Families displaced by violent earthquakes and wars. Warm hearts sleeping under cold blankets of stars. Lives destroyed and washed away. Families fleeing into the unknown. But look closer. See the hope everywhere. See the ones running towards disasters to help. Compassion exists all around the world. Kindness is healing wounds, bringing hope for a brighter tomorrow. Look closer and see the many families like Layla's who've lived through unimaginable hardships and yet haven't given up. Please don't give up on those forced to flee. Donate now.
Did you know that 80% of a human's brain is developed by age 3? That's such a narrow period of time which will have lifelong consequences. Not only on one child, but whole societies, the whole world. That's why we chose UNICEF at Gamers Without Borders, because they are there for children every step of the way. From early childhood until they enjoy their rights to health, education, protection, and more to grow up and thrive. Choosing UNICEF is the right thing and the smart thing to do, and you can join us.
Progress is a race that has no end. After every finish line, another challenge awaits. How can we continue to push innovation in a sport at the forefront of technology? This is how. Discover how Aramco and the Aston Martin Formula One team aim to meet Formula One's sustainable fuel targets. Aramco, powered by How.
Another map down in this best of 5. Cyclops still pressing their thumbs down on the necks of SANDBOX. Just one more map win, and the series, the #1 spot, and that ticket to Gamers 8 later in the year will be theirs. Jesse, that game, well, that map bounced back and forth like nothing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it really did, right? I mean, it was a little bit streaky. We saw Cyclops starting off with 3 blitz rounds in a row in which Black Ray on the blitz got a single kill, but our Kali was cleaning up anyways. We saw really good coordination between the fraggers of that squad and the blitz play coming through that started them off really strong. SANDBOX started to battle back on the defense, but didn't manage to get that 3-3 split that they were definitely hoping for that would have let them force this into overtime. And then on the defense, it was kind of a similar story where like SANDBOX started off with some decent attacks coming through. Thought Arakaze had some good plays. Thought Good Boy had a couple of had a great round there on round 10, but then it just started slipping away. Those solo pushes that SANDBOX were going for just were not consistent enough.
Dude, you should have been hearing what Jesse was like while we were watching this game. He was like, okay, 3 rounds straight. They only have 1 kill with the blitz, so I'm just gonna go straight to guarantee. Homie was ready to bet the entire ranch on the market right then and there, assuming that XPSG were not going to be able to bring this map back. And then things got a little bit scary because I see SANDBOX start figuring their attacks out a little bit better. They start understanding you gotta drone a little bit more. You need to be able to play aggressive and have somebody else playing behind your entry. And they got that down round after round. So it started looking, when we were 5-5, when we got to break point and SANDBOX force it there, I start getting really worried. Cyclops are about to let this one slip. Then they call attack timeout in the exact spot they need to. They win those last 2, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, I mean, that attack timeout right after that happened, I mean, they were having good drones for sure when they were going on that 3-round attacking streak, but they completely lost it. Like, you see these rounds in 11s, you'll see on the highlights, it's literally just players walking into rooms by themselves, don't have the intel, don't have the trade capabilities. So, while that was there for a moment, clearly that wasn't consistent. That wasn't something that was able to pull throughout the entirety of it. Again, I think it's a big mental blockage from SANDBOX where, like, they just get stuck on these attacks when everything is on the line and they can't get that coordination down. They can't do things step by step like they need to. So, yeah, tough for them, certainly to not be able to close this one out.
Yeah, we're getting our top performing individuals to face off one more time in our head-to-head graphic. Jesse, 2 players were basically sharing the load on Team of Cyclops, weren't they? It was Arculi and Aniton were just making a huge impact. Arculi, like we've mentioned, 9-1 after 5 rounds.
Yeah, Arculi, I think, really working well off the rest of his teams, like the space that they're making. We mentioned the blitz there, how that was super impactful from Blackray, and Arculi was cleaning it up expertly. Love the way he was able to work with the rest of his teammates, getting a good couple of entries. Even when they switched over to defense, started off with the big 2 kills just to start off the half. So really nice to see Arculi stepping up, having a big half here for Cyclops. Not always the guy that you talk about on this team, but really putting in the work today.
I mean, Jacob, imagine I'm giving you the headset, okay? You got a minute to coach SANDBOX before we dive into map number 3. What do you even say to them?
Honestly, if you have all of this pressure on you, I'm saying pull NV Taylor off of the Yana, pull him off of the frontline entry role, because I think very clearly through 2 games, it's already proven that it's not working. So if you need to make a pretty big switch up, it's kind of a bad thing to do, but you're down by 3 maps. Your opportunity to go to another LAN event is dwindling right in front of your eyes because you have the wrong guys on the wrong role. So honestly, I think you need to make some kind of drastic switch. You probably need to do maybe a direct 1-for-1 with Arakaze and NV Taylor, or somebody else who's capable of working off of those very, very quick entry kills and then progressing the round from there. Because if you're not finding those frags, you're not going to be doing anything for the rest of the round. It has to be somebody else working in tandem with Good Boy, because NV Taylor, as of this exact moment, simply is not it. He is the single reason why I think SANDBOX are incapable of doing almost anything on attack.
Well, speaking of Arakaze, when speaking of individual performances, Jesse, we're going to go through a cheeky little recap that we had from that previous map, and I want you to take me through what happened in the later rounds.
Yeah, I don't think you can afford to take Arakaze off his current roles because he's been doing so well as the Nomad, a real kind of pinch player, laxing style play style. This is him on the window. I want to show you 2 clips round after round, both back to back. This first round finds the first pick on a small bake window. Great little pick off to find Blackray overextending for sure. And then the second kill, it's going to be hard to miss. Somebody's going to jump out of him. It'll be Chibisu who'll jump out above him. You'll just see it on the outlines as Good Boy turns his head. Watch for it because it is going to be fast. There it is. Jumps out. Arakaze found the pick on the guy jumping out above him. So aware of where this pressure is going to come from. Thought that was really good from Arakaze. Again, kind of playing alone. And then we see it again. Round number 9, the very next round. Notice the drone intel coming through from Mephi. Tells Arakaze how safe this is. The drone work is there for him. He's alone, but he's still got that intel. Gets him a free pick on Arcali. And then 2 players are going to come for this trade. Both of them are going to get punished. There's going to be Blackray up on the top balcony who's going to start for this pick, or start for the swing, and was going to get caught up on the drone. This intel's perfectly there, and then there will be one coming through reading as well. Look at the red pings. They know exactly where these guys are. Arakaze playing the Nomad off on his lonesome finds so much impact, and it was the only reason why SANDBOX were actually able to start something on their attacks. It wasn't enough, and I agree with Jacob. There's got to be something else going well there, especially with NV Taylor with the entry game. But if nothing else, I at least am glad that Arakaze is stepping up and having lots of impact.
Well, looking ahead to map number 3, we're going to be going over to Skyscraper. We touched on this, I think, yesterday during the EU semi-final. Skyscraper, quite a clinical map, a bit samey, not a huge amount going on in terms of, like, crazy plays, but don't forget, we're in the Korea-Japan region. Anything can happen. We see chaos ensue whenever we go into this regional map. So, Jacob, what can we expect coming to Skyscraper? What does SANDBOX have to do? You keep saying they have to switch it up, but can they do it on a map like Skyscraper?
Probably yes, because Cyclops really just don't play this map. And if the last time they did was against BDS, funnily enough, back at the 6th Invitational was the one map that BDS won in that series because Cyclops actually beat BDS. I know, the one time. That's the weirdest eventuality. Nobody saw that one coming. SANDBOX, for their own part, have actually played this thing recently. I don't remember if they played it back at the Major, but back in Stage 1, they played it twice. And it was against D+, and then later on against BSG, and they were only 1-1 on it in very recent memory. So I think, if anything, they've shown that they understand what they like about Skyscraper, but that's also something that Cyclops themselves can read into, even if they haven't played it very much. So Cyclops are really, really hoping that XBSG just play this exact same way that they have for the past 2 maps, and SANDBOX are hoping that Cyclops don't really know what to do on Skyscraper.
I mean, Jesse, we talk about individual performance quite a lot. You know, we see these head-to-head graphics, we see all these players who are shining, but they're not really able to shine if they don't have an effective support system, right? Because we look at players like Good Boy, we spoke about this yesterday, putting up great numbers, playing really well, but if you don't have that team synergy, everything just falls apart.
100%, and I think that really does show when we get to that attack. I'm going to keep hammering home this point because I really think it's the weak point of SANDBOX. SANDBOX are a very slow team when they go for their pushes, when they go for their attacks, and because they chose Skyscraper, it's going to be Cyclops who get to choose what side they start on. They're going to choose defense, no question about it. Very defender-sided map, so you've got 6 rounds coming up where you have to push on a very defender-sided map. When you're on your weaker side, this pick from SANDBOX, I worry it's going to come back to bite them because you're absolutely right. I mean, when this team is not working together, when they don't have that support system, maybe Arkaze picks up a couple of rounds by getting a 2K or 3K here or there. Maybe Good Boy does win a couple of big entries and starts them off on the right foot. But if they don't, it feels like that backline's just not there from SANDBOX. Feels like things move way too slow in the 3v3 style pushes. Demic on that hard breach is just oftentimes not getting that utility off fast enough. So yeah, I am a little bit worried for this map. I'm kind of smelling a 3-0 here. I hate to say it. I hope I'm wrong, but the momentum is just clearly not on the side of the Koreans.
Jacob, do you feel like anyone is kind of dragging their heels? You mentioned Envy Taylor needs to kind of switch things up, but do you feel like any players in particular need to really pull this one out of the bag if SANDBOX are going to make anything of this best of 5?
I mean, you can make the argument that somebody like Demic is he's pacing himself a little bit weird because if his primary job is just opening up walls, then he needs to be doing a lot more of that. And I feel like with Skyscraper, the pressure will be on him and his timing with his hard breaches to ensure that angles are opened up appropriately for SANDBOX. So it might be a case of whether he actually is able to do that in a very timely fashion that proves whether SANDBOX can get an advantage on attack. And yeah, because they're starting on attack first, presumably that means it's going to be infinitely more impactful for him to get that timing down. But honestly, Jesse, if you're getting a little bit of that same smell of a 3-0, I'm getting a pretty massive whiff of it over here. I really don't think SANDBOX have a chance. I think Cyclops get this one, and we have a pretty fast best of 5.
Cyclops are, you know, they're building that confidence every single time we see them. They're pushing faster, more aggressively. Do we feel like we're going to see that same kind of aggression coming out of the gates? Or do you feel like on a map like Skyscraper, you've got to be a bit more tentative, Jesse?
I mean, I think what I've really enjoyed seeing from Cyclops so far is that when they do go for these kind of like rush gimmicky style pushes, they're often doing it with like a real purpose, right? Like they're running in the blitz, and it's not that you're fully relying on this one blitz player to do everything in the round like it felt like Cyclops used to do when Anaton was in those roles. Instead, they're kind of giving these roles to their more, you know, flexy support style players like Blackray, and it's allowing guys like Anaton, guys like Arkaze to step up and find a lot of that impact, find a lot of those frags in behind that kind of chaos that's being created from the blitz, from the glass, whatever might be being brought out in that kind of rush style strategy. So, you know, the glass definitely can be brought out. The Ying can be very popular on this map for sure. Blitz, maybe, we'll see. Very interesting to see if the Monty ban comes through as well, because SANDBOX have banned Montaigne twice now against Cyclops, probably the most commonly banned operator against this team. And it's very good attacking on, you know, Black Stairs, Tea Room Karaoke. So we'll see if that slips through. Probably not, but if it does, I'm sure we'll see Anaton picking up some of that too.
Well, for you folks at home, we're going to throw to a very quick break before we dive into our map number 3. And when we return, you'll be with Blue and Stokes to go into our next map of the Grand Final.
The main gun is the Legion gun, the same gun, not the shotty. I just used the flash hider and the holograph. I think it's the the only one you can really use. The secondary, you're probably gonna use the little shorty, so you can do rotates. Is a really good operator for the dry hands in the defense, and between Barb and Alarm is like whatever, they do the same role in defense. It's just which one you prefer. He had defense and he can frag out, so if you just like to shoot, you can have arcs in any map. But I think probably it's between Villa, I really like it. I like Border because Border is a really tough map for like defense on the right hand side, and I really like to play on Oregon too. Like just those three on the maps, I feel really comfortable playing with Oryx. Normally in the prep phase I do like so many rotates, so many pixels. Like normally I am the guy that have like the biggest tryhard on the team when I'm playing RX, and I'm pretty used to it. But at the start you get a little confused, you forget some things you have to do, but most of the time I'm doing like all the setup from defense. I really like to use it, not only the getting up to the hatches, you can do some different rotates with some Val cams or Echo cams, so you can get some intel and go up to the hatches and do rotates. But to escape from like difficult gunfights, when you're in a tough spot, you have to run away, but you can just sprint and get killed. But when you do the dash from RX, most of the time is you get away from the other team. So I really like to be on this chaotic moment with the RX because you can just kill a guy, do the dash, and go away. I think that the only trick I can think about is of you breaking barricades without just going out of the map. You can just punch the left side of the door and it's the wall, so you stay inside the map and you break the door. It doesn't make a lot of noise. And the other thing is just tips. If you're gonna play RX, use a lot of the dash. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like really useful in a gunfight, but sometimes it really is. Just like kill a guy, do the dash, you're just gonna be like making a very chaotic moment for the attack to kill you, and sometimes it really works. I think the only counter I can think about is when you have like a lot of claymores and a lot of nomads, because when I'm playing RX, I normally do a lot of picks, and I'm playing really aggressive. So when somebody is playing to punish me in a really safe way, normally is the thing that really counters me. So nomad and claymores are the things that is really tough for me when I go play against. I think the first one is like dashing through walls to get into a gunfight. When you dash through a wall, you get the timing out of the dash, it gets slower, so you still need more time in the animation. So you can't just go through a wall and try to have a gunfight. It's just gonna get killed. And the second thing is dashing through a mountain. Like a lot of guys want to kill the shield and just miss the shield. To dash the shield, you have to be really close to him, or at least it's really easy to have it, because you can see so many times people missing it. It's pretty common. So just be calm. Don't need to rush it and just go sprinting and then try to do the dash. Just be calm. Wait for it, and you do the dash, you're gonna kill the mountain pretty easy way. I think it's like an entire match. It was the Furia in the finals of the CYCLOPS, the closet. I was playing Oryx on the Oregon, and every round I was doing a double kill, but every round I was like get drones in the lower floor and then get a kill, go back to site. And I was doing this in every site, and I was just doing my thing. It was working every round.
in the heart of an ancient desert. The land of heroes awaits. Prepare yourself. To witness feats you never thought possible. Records will be broken. Legends will be born. And fortunes will be made. The stage is set. The largest esports and gaming festival the world has ever known. Ready or not, here it comes. Gamers 8, the land of heroes.
And welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Gamers Without Borders event for 2023 in Rainbow Six. We're just potentially one map away from qualifying our first team of the event to Gamers 8, the main event following this tournament up, of course, where our teams are going to have plenty of opportunities to earn massive sums of cash for themselves. Today, it's all about the charitable prize pool, of course. And even there, we have plenty of money being dished out to our teams. A pretty big upgrade is on the line for whoever wins this matchup. And we nearly do have that winner if we are not able to see SANDBOX turn things around on this upcoming map. It is going to be on Skyscraper, of course. It can be a very chaotic map, and this has been already a very chaotic series, one that we've been able to see CYCLOPS take command of in more situations than not. So once again, that puts the pressure onto SANDBOX themselves to be able to bring themselves back from the brink and try to trigger maps 4 and 5 of this series. As if not, we could be looking at the 3-0 victory for CYCLOPS. Stokes, let's get your take on things as we get ready to head into the third map.
A pretty interesting position right now, especially for CYCLOPS. You know, Skyscraper is what befalls us right now, and it could be a pretty weird back and forth. You know, Skyscraper, a very defensive map, and obviously one that, you know, CYCLOPS is more than likely going to end up choosing here, as this is going to be SANDBOX's map choice. So, you know, this could be a really awkward affair just, you know, off rip here for SANDBOX. They didn't look too coordinated on Kafe, and that map shares a very, you know, similar, you know, offensive structure to what we see on Skyscraper and its, you know, difficulty. It's just very difficult to try and coordinate these things at a very high level, and it's something that we see a lot of teams struggle with, and definitely something that separates a lot of the, you know, different teams and their skills when it comes to Skyscraper. So excited to see what SANDBOX can potentially do, especially after this little bit of a break, to get some time and talk things out.
There are some problems that CYCLOPS could potentially run into on this map, I do feel like, though, especially on their defensive side, where we saw, at least on the previous map, a couple problems where, once again, they're just kind of leaving like that 1 or 2 flank avenues open, and we were able to see SANDBOX hyper-focalize on that one to be able to kind of open up a domino effect path to be able to closing out those rounds. But that does assume, of course, that SANDBOX are able to follow through on that while still leaving enough time in their bank to actually execute properly onto the site. That's been a bigger issue. You're at the analysis desk talking a little bit about that, as that SANDBOX just is ultimately a little bit too slow from time to time on their attacks. We'll see if that's going to remain a problem or not as we get ready, ladies and gentlemen, now to go live with that third map. Here we go. As you can see, it is once again going to be on Skyscraper. So let's see if it indeed will be the third and final map of this series, or if SANDBOX still has that little bit of life left in them to push us onward on maps 4 and 5. We'll go into it as we get a very interesting pan from CYCLOPS right off the rip here, as Glaz, of all operators, is going to be removed from play.
You know, I mean, fair enough. SANDBOX is also going to remove Monty, so 2 spot bans here. You know, Glaz, he's a really strong pick for a map like Skyscraper, where you have some of these, you know, towers and stuff that you can abuse on the outside of the map to get some unique perspectives on these windows. So not exactly the worst ban in the world, but definitely one that we don't see too often. And you can say the same for, excuse me, Goyo, wrapping up things here on the tail end for CYCLOPS. Solis will be banned out yet again as well from SANDBOX. So looking to be pretty interesting here, especially from the CYCLOPS perspective, as they are going to be looking to chain together a whole swath of rounds on this defensive end.
Important to note, of course, a zombie being left in play and immediately used as well by Cyclops is going to leave a lot of those individual bunker options open, meaning that the problems that SANDBOX and to some extent Cyclops are running into on their attacks of just having these kind of delay setups eat up so much time and then not leave enough to properly focus on the site clear. That could very well start to pop up again, because this is another map where a zombie gets quite a bit of power inside of just basically like solo holds if she is allowed into the pool and is not banned out there. So that could potentially be a mistake. That could cost Cyclops quite a few rounds, potentially, or as a result of that, the series as well, since they don't want to deal with the additional delay potential that could come from Goyo, because he also sees quite a bit of play here. Would specifically be brought out on a site like this one, but obviously with the ban, no longer going to be in the cards.
5 seconds left before insertion. Attackers are heading out to defuse a bomb.
All right, well, CAG wrapping things up here for the very tail end of their prep phase, getting things set up and ready to go up against SANDBOX's onslaught of utility that they're bringing on board here. Lost a couple of drones inside of that drone phase there. Down to 8 already, but good news is they've brought some other things to bear inside of this round that could definitely assist them, especially with NV Taylor coming in with Yana and that clone. So looking to obviously attack on the office side of things initially here, and this could be kind of a difficult round for them off rip. No frost mats to worry about, but definitely some other utility pieces that could be quite a nuisance, like the bandit batteries that just locked up the single panel wall. That's going to be some Selma charges down and also an EMP burned. In fact, 2 EMPs burned, as Mephi only has 1 remaining.
Slow wind-up aside from that is a little bit of damage going on to Suzuk so far. Arcully with the possibility to potentially throw himself into the fray, though, as Suzuk is actually finished off. Once again, it's Good Boy on that early round lure, constantly making the first mark. But as we've seen far too often, very much on his lonesome fulfilling that task. So he's going to be unable to carry it forward past that initial kill. He's been countered out pretty much immediately. SANDBOX, though, do recover the player advantage as Arkaze is able to find the second kill now against Blackray. Arcully has a hop-out opportunity here, but the player crosses the divide again. NV Taylor just too fast for Arcully. And as a result, he will win that duel instead. SANDBOX starting to take full control of the setup here now as it is brought down to a 2v4.
CAG accomplished everything necessary in order to try and hold up the round, but just committed too hard to these gunfights, and SANDBOX remaining vigilant, able to take out a lot of the aggressive plays, the aggressive offerings from Cyclops, and it over to SBX has been able to at least transition this in towards a drum offense here. Chibi's going to take some damage, but able to translate that into a kill of his own as he'll turn it back here on the terrace side. Nice look here from SBX as he'll actually get aggressive towards site, and there's going to be too many cooks in the kitchen. There's nothing really to do for the last Cyclops member, and SBX is going to get their very first offense.
Same kind of common problem that we've seen from Cyclops in the past there, where once again they just kind of have a few players off on an island, not able to trade off of each other appropriately enough, and as a result of that, SANDBOX domino effect their way into an ultimate win there, and that's even with the immediate trades coming forward. Just a little bit too fight heavy, it seems. Their players kind of overextending themselves just a bit too far into enemy territory, and as a result, basically giving a all or nothing sort of mentality where they need to win those fights in order to try and fight back for some form of control, but then they just lose too many of those fights, and it very quickly falls out of their potential kind of retake possibility. So as a result of that, SANDBOX will win the opening round of the map. And now we're going to see if Cyclops can get revenge for that by shifting the site over to the generally much more prominent for defenders T-room hold.
Usually a very strong choice, and that's honestly what I thought we were going to see first out of Cyclops, but it didn't seem like they wanted to go to that initially, instead translating that into a, office defense instead, which was able to at least stand up and, what we saw, first of all, but past that, nothing too much coming from it. So hopefully they're able to try and get things going when it comes to this other site. As for SBX's current setup, though, looks well, at least decent, obviously. We got the Selmas coming in here from Demic to be able to handle some of the walls on the far balcony. Also, the EMPs coming from Mephi. Just really hope he hits his mark this time. That was the big issue the last one, where they really weren't able to do too much with that utility, given the circumstances of the Bandit able to slip through and able to get that Bandit battery on quickly enough to get rid of the Selma charge that they had applied. So SBX looking to try and prevent Cyclops from quickly creating a teeter-totter out of this map, making this a 1-1 scoreline.
Well, keeping things very preserved at the moment here. Chibi trying to play ultra passively, as he's going to try to get another Kiba barricade out there, but does not end up exploding the way that he needs. Oh, what a shot from Demic. Not exactly sure how it managed to land on his head, but ends up impacting directly against Chibisu there. Nicely found either way. As that is once again going to hand the open kill of the round over towards SANDBOX. This time, no way for Cyclops to actually trade that one back very easily. They're going to rotate their player into the Geisha area, but I don't believe it's necessarily a recoverable trade at this point of the round. It's going to take a little bit more patience for Cyclops to potentially get that, as doubling down on the situation is how they ultimately lost the last round. Arcully, though, quickly corrects me, at least, as he rushes it to the outside to be able to quickly trade that one out against Demic.
He's just looking to see if he can equalize here, and he finds it. Demic's going to go down, and the drone game now starting to dwindle here as Anaton will continue to add to that issue for SANDBOX. MV Taylor and the rest of the gang will rotate off here and try and find greener pastures. Frag grenade out and under here for Good Boy. Looking to see if he can potentially dislodge somebody inside of T. Does potentially have one, but it looks like there's a player playing on top of the table, so not really too much to offer in this situation. Another frag grenade out, and oh, this could be the moment. Frag will come through, but no real damage coming on to Anaton, as he did end up repositioning into kind of this mid-hallway here. And Good Boy will end up going down as well. Another frag grenade out. Will it hit its mark? It will, but Anaton once again just forcing this misposition. MV Taylor going to try and feed another nade through and potentially help up Good Boy, but no more frag grenades for them to try and deal with any situations up top. Good Boy on low HP, and MV Taylor now tags Cyclops with a good read on the situation, but they're still going to lose some bodies.
However, Good Boy, along with Arukaze, finally find a hole in the defense. Black Ray at least is able to negate out the advances from Good Boy, but MV Taylor reconfirms the advantage for the attackers now. It's come out of absolutely nowhere, but SANDBOX have been able to get themselves onto the site and have now found a plant. Even better than that, they already have the post-plant angles established. SANDBOX, in my opinion, with no business winning that round, given that it was down to approximately a 2v4 with only 30 seconds left, somehow make the action work by stealing positioning on the inside of the site up through the barbecue stairs. Beautifully done from SANDBOX, but a massive blunder at the hands of Cyclops.
Yeah, I'm no mathematician, but this isn't adding up, you know, like SANDBOX really did not have a chance to really do much with that round coming up the stairwell in the way that they did. It was just really curious in the way that Cyclops kind of fell apart there. But nothing there could really get done past what SANDBOX was able to initially do. That's really where they needed to nip it in the bud. If they were able to start things off just by shutting them down at the stairwell, then things would have been pretty easy peasy. But it was just that really deep lunge that SANDBOX got over towards Karaoke that made things so very difficult for them. And again, some of the more aggressive tendencies of Cyclops, you know, being showcased there and really coming back to bite them, especially with that kill that MV Taylor picked up, just constantly spamming the angle, and he gets right at the tail end of his magazine, and the Cyclops player still swings and dies. He just had to wait that little extra split second, John, and that entire round goes the other way. But Cyclops just could not remain patient. They end up losing the round because of it.
Well, some bumps in the road for Cyclops is going to continue to hand over to advantage to SANDBOX, obviously, as they push forward now with a 2-0 advantage over Cyclops. Not something that Cyclops can't recover from, of course, but these are some worrying signs that we have seen them fall to pieces now in two very similar ways on two very similar sites. Another upstairs hold still in the cards as they retry, it looks like, the T-room hold for themselves and see if they can correct on the fixable mistakes that were made there back in round number 2. And like I said, very fixable, just kind of play style mistakes that are made there by the members of Cyclops. So assuming they are correcting on those, I would generally certainly assume that this round would go a bit better. But at the same time, SANDBOX now know what the setup looks like, know how to counter it more appropriately. So could very well repeat the success for the attackers as well here. Good Boy finally making his mark to move forward, but nearly loses his life in the process. And the same can be said as well for the Yana, as I believe that was the natural version of the Yana crossing, not the Gemini clone that she has going about there. Either way, though, no damage impacted onto our attackers just yet, as Cyclops are still doing a good job of wasting out the time with the small staircase posturing they've been throwing out against the SANDBOX clear.
Only halfway through the round, plenty of time still, but SANDBOX have demolished their drone count, and this might be the time for Cyclops here, Blue. This is going to be the most exploitative they can potentially get, especially with their playstyle. They really like to play aggressively, and SANDBOX, yeah, they're starting to hit their nades, but Good Boy, he's going to have to get yet another. It's actually going to be Mephi first, and the plant coming in as well. SANDBOX, they just choose to go for the execute instead. No info, no problem, they say. They knock it down to just R. Cully, who has to try and reclaim the entirety of the top floor from the house stairs.
Support setup is not working out for Cyclops as well here. Is starting to become another big issue for them. When we see SANDBOX find that one or two kind of winning opening kills for themselves, they get them site control and get their plant, there is just nothing even close to a retake attempt that ever shows up for Cyclops. Like I said before, dominoes as they continue to fall down piece by piece after really only one or two entries. SANDBOX continue to sneak out these rounds after we see, at least what I'm looking at least, are relatively convincing holds from Cyclops up until that about 1 minute, maybe 30-second mark, where once again SANDBOX continues to sneak out some entries to take these rounds.
Well, Cyclops going to go for the timeout now and see if they can potentially talk this out, and I think this is a perfect time to try and go for this. SBX has already ran it up 3 rounds, but the good news is it seems like these two teams are magnets for each other. They cannot get too far away, John. They're always within relative distance. So Cyclops with an opportunity to bounce back, and honestly, I think that it's in the wins. So we'll see what they can do with these follow-up rounds.
Say that, but once again, it's been 3 rounds straight now for SANDBOX, constantly abusing out the defense from Cyclops in the same method. So we'll hope that Cyclops have now caught on to that inside of this tactical pause that they'll take for themselves. No ability to come back to this, of course, later, unless they do force one out of SANDBOX. So we're going to hope whatever changes being made now are quite effective and give us the full 3-3 reversal here, as if not, and they run into problems on their attacking side as well, they will not get that second chance for relief. Pause things out again. Meanwhile, over on the side of SANDBOX, continuing to excel quite evenly across the scope of the team. Obviously, Arukaze doing most of the heavy lifting when it comes to finding that critical kill or two, but once it's picked up by either him or Good Boy, it's been pretty easy swimming for the rest of SANDBOX past that point to clean up the rest of the remnants on Cyclops.
10 seconds left.
Nice little change over here from Good Boy, getting off of the Ash and back onto the Nook. We've been seeing him play this a decent bit, and it's a fantastic pick for a map like Skyscraper as well. There's a lot of immediate access to the top floor via these stairwells, and just being able to circumvent things like the cameras as well as just audio cues in general is really fantastic for a player like Good Boy that really likes to try and get those deep sweeping penetrations that you can with a player like this. So see if we can potentially get something else out of Good Boy here when it comes to some more of these aggressive plays. Already losing quite a few drones, but didn't seemingly matter the last round, so why would it on this one? An aggressive play already down low. Good Boy with a nice position inside of bedroom. Gonna see if any of these frag grenades can catch off some players upstairs.
A little off the angle, unfortunately, for Good Boy there. So he's not going to be able to make the impact the way he would have liked. And even worse, he's opened up a bit of an angle, looks like, for Cyclops to actually work down below against him, too. So you can see a few of those tracers coming through to respond to that. Suzik with a wild hip fire spray, hoping he can get some damage off onto one of the initial SANDBOX clears just below him. He has the position right. Just like I said, the aim is not in the right spot, and it's once again Arukaze to find the better of Suzu. But Anaton gives us an unexpected hop over the barrier to take out Good Boy instead on the tray there. Problem is, they had to give up a lot of positioning in order to go for that one. So SANDBOX does take a considerable amount of the upstairs office spots, but they don't necessarily feel fully confident to latch themselves onto that as they ultimately back away a little bit from it. We can see Chibisu as well chucking out the nitro, but it will be a little bit off positioning and timing to make any true effective play that gets the rest of this SANDBOX clear. Speaking of which, SANDBOX have backed away a bit. They're going to refocus their efforts now on the actual balcony entrance to the office part of the building and begin shifting their positioning over towards the site. Enough playing around with these downstairs holds. They need to move towards the objective.
Yeah, this is where things become a big problem on Skyscraper. It's kind of like attacking two completely separate buildings with the way that this central, hall kind of works on this map. Cyclops have a completely, different layer of defense built up over on this front now, and SANDBOX now have to address this inside of the last minute. We've seen teams over the last year really struggle to deal with this portion of Skyscraper. So let's see how SANDBOX can try and progress here with this. MB Taylor, bounce out on the nade, and it's at least not going to dislodge the Selma there, so they'll be able to at least get that open. But now some damage coming in onto SANDBOX, and it's at least pretty difficult to deal with right now. Frag grenades out, and at least another smoke out for Black Ray before he gets down to Nitro Cell will claim one. Anaton with the rotation up, down, low, as well as Chibi. Two big kills, though. Anaton will pick up one. No Nitro Cells down low, though, as Anaton's trying to deal with this situation. He's going to try and head it up with a shotgun. The plant starts to go down. Chibi with a big play. Arukaze, he's going to attempt to stick it at the back of Gold. He can actually get one, but no, it's the timer! Cyclops went out their first round due to the man advantage in the clutch. Very well done from them as they're able to constantly take a fight to SANDBOX.
Cyclops, in all honesty, again, just barely sneaking off with that one. And we can see another piece of the issue in terms of why they're struggling so much to maintain positioning in the midst of these fights. Right there, it's just a kind of a lack of commitment from anyone on Cyclops. We could see for at least one of their players, I believe it was Suzuki, kind of just locked in the hot corner for like a solid 5 to 10 seconds, just wasting out the full attention and time of SANDBOX. But during that, no one else on Cyclops decides to take a risk, take a step forward to potentially support their teammate, even if it means trading his dead body right there. It's not until after he goes down that we see those players trying to make those moves forward, and by the time we've reached that point, SANDBOX are already looking at those very same players because they've, taken care of their primary target or looking otherwise. It's Cyclops that need to step up here a little bit, make that unexpected play, take that step forward before it's expected from SANDBOX's side. Otherwise, SANDBOX are going to continue to excel in at least the fragging game, although they do finally lose their edge when it comes to actually following it through for the outright round here for the first time in the first 4 rounds.
5 seconds left before insertion.
Well, this has sent SANDBOX into a flurry of changes for this round. As you can see, the entire line shift from them coming in. Mephi through Good Boy, all switching up their ops from what they initially had shown. Good Boy's going to go back to all reliable. We'll see if it actually gets him a kill this time, but Arukaze has really been the highlight player for SANDBOX that has gotten so many rounds for them past the more crucial kills that have just been more impactful overall for the lower numbered players around. Oh, Chibi, he had it too. He had it too, but MV treats him with such little respect. Fantastic damage off, but it's quickly traded back. Good Boy shut down. They knew that he would quickly enter the building yet again, John. And Anaton now able to try and dictate what the next moments of this round's going to be like with the cardiac sensor.
Props again to Anaton. He is one of the few players right now that is kind of making the necessary moves here on Cyclops. I was talking about before how no one on Cyclops really seemed to have the confidence to make those forward plays, get in the way of the clear pressure from SANDBOX. Anaton's been one of the shining stars in that regard. And here's another great example of it. Why? He had the intel on the player down below him from the pulse camera and decides, you know what, I'm going to take a swing at it. And thankfully comes out on top. It's moves like that that are saving Cyclops in these rounds, or at least extending the play outward a bit here and potentially keeping Cyclops in a potential 3-0 position here if they're going to try and go for the outright comeback. SANDBOX, though, still in control of the current pacing of the round, but they are down a player, so that's more likely going to cause them to lose that control relatively quickly as they still look for a safer path to get themselves into the site and hopefully with a free kill in the process so they can re-equalize things down to a minimum 3v3 before losing another player.
Mephi popping the cork here. And the drone inside, but SBX starting to have some issues now. This is what I was worried about, John. Whenever Cyclops is really able to get a foothold on SBX, it seems like they're able to really hit their mark, start running up these streaks. But as soon as I say that, the shutdown on the entry, it comes through. They need one more, and they get it done. Cyclops, they shut them down. SANDBOX might be able to get the first initial kills, but Cyclops, they still are capable of battling back in the clutch. They get things done on the tail end of that round. It's 2-3 in favor of SANDBOX.
It is so close. Once again, it's that stalwart play from Cyclops that's creating a huge double-edged sword effect. Yeah, it's constantly draining the timer down to like 5 or 10 seconds left by the time SANDBOX get themselves into the site, but it's also making it very easy for SANDBOX just to basically rattle their way down a checklist to try and make their entry game work, and they have made it work 3 times so far here, so not going to be sweating too much the loss of these few rounds. It's really just Cyclops finally getting their own footing back in that, last 5 seconds or so of the round to still clutch things out here on the previous 2. We'll see if they can go for the outright 3-3 comeback now. Or once again, that'll also give Cyclops a little bit more of a sigh of relief, because they will finally get the heck off this defensive side where things are very tense for them at the moment as they try to pick up a few more rounds.
Well, SANDBOX trying to find something in order to stave off a tied ball game here on this initial half, and potentially a huge issue for them coming through once Cyclops gets control of the offense, because we really don't know what's going to happen. SANDBOX had a huge run going on here and just ended up being cold coming through these last 2 rounds, but Cyclops could just end up pulling things through, running things up once they get to the offensive side as well. Again, you really just don't know with how streaky these 2 teams have been. And now with SANDBOX trying a little bit of a different operator lineup to see if they can potentially get some more utility to assist them with this clear. Could end up pulling things through at the very last second, making this a 4-2 scoreline. CAG, they spread themselves around the map to try and head off SANDBOX at every single potential entry point. Let's see how this goes here, as SANDBOX are just rounding the corner. Could be right on the window. Envy Taylor, he's ready for it. Addison goes down, asks for the gunfight, and well, he receives.
Far too easy as well for Envy to just read directly into it. Addison with the prone walk out there, feeds himself over to Envy Taylor, who's already primed on the angle. Not the way for Cyclops to get themselves back into the fight. And that'll cause some serious issues, as once again, like I mentioned in the last round, it has been one of the few bright shining stars when it comes to making those forward plays and overall being a major disruption to SANDBOX's game plan on the attacking side. Who else is going to step up and be that player now for Cyclops? Well, so far, no one reliable on the defense is going to be able to potentially step up to the plate and do that. But we'll have to see, is at least in the past maps, we have seen players like this one right here, Suzuk, be potentially able to be bit of a showstopper when it comes to the defense playing against the offense. And we'll be trying to get in the way of that now. Good boy, though, seems to have a pretty good read out of the rotate downstairs, and indeed, the direct counter onto Black Ray Shenanigans. Nearly gets himself a 3rd kill there, too, on the top-down angle, but it seems that player has other concerns to worry about. Suzuk now trying to scope in, but he, too, will get taken down on the cross as Good Boy comes forward with assistance from a teammate to lock out that 3rd kill. Number 4 potentially coming up here. Arcully realizes that and backs away, but still finds himself forced into a fight for Geisha, and the last one as well. Chibi tries to maintain that very same positioning, but is just bullied directly out of it. Massive lead can be maintained for SANDBOX at halftime because of that one. 4-2 advantage goes their way.
It's looking very strong for them, at least given this offensive half. Able to at least put together this last offensive piece of the puzzle here, and it was a necessity. Just very strong patience and able to break down the site in a considerable manner where Cyclops really weren't comfortable with their positions and ended up, trying to look for other areas in order to play, or just some cheeky gunfights, and ended up nipping them right in the bud. So we'll see if SBX can continue their run here as they end up switching things over to the defensive end. They're going to toss it right into T and Karaoke.
So back to what is oftentimes the default site for our defenders, and indeed it will be as far as SANDBOX is concerned. We'll see if they are prepared to continue to run this gauntlet up and potentially finally give them at least 1 map on the scoreboard. We still have 3 more to play out, including this one, of course. So That opportunity for SANDBOX to work their way back into it is still alive and well, but the entire time that they are going to be attempting to do that, their backs will be up against the wall. Any one of those 3 maps is lost, and CYCLOPS takes the series and the qualification to Gamers 8 along with it. We're going to have to hope that it is all good things to discuss as far as SANDBOX is concerned if they are indeed looking to go for the reverse sweep victory here today against CYCLOPS. But for CYCLOPS, it's a new half, a new day for them as well. Big emphasis going to be on potentially opening up the back wall into the T room itself, as we are going to be bringing the Maverick into play. A few other options also going to be presented to our attackers because of that, so we'll see how exactly they want to try and work it. Our Cully on that Nook could get it up to some trouble in the opening moments of the round 2, of course.
Well, Kagger at least getting inside of the building in good time here. Only 40-ish, 50-ish seconds off the clock. So they're able to at least get a position built up inside of Pantry. Mike's going to be forced back now off of that hallway. As Chippy rather in delivery, looking in towards Pantry. These two trying to both hold more of a passive angle. Don't want to give up too much earlier on into the round. Just kind of want to try and force him to clear this space. If Cyclops want it, they're going to have to work for it. It's really what you're looking for here. Nice little trade. Oh my, it's actually those two. They both go for the, one of them goes for the aggressive swing there as soon as we move away. And Arcoli going to pick up one as well. Cyclops starting to make quite a bid to take round 7.
CYCLOPS looking to quickly get back into booming shape here and championship shape if they can follow it through completely at this point. But SANDBOX very much having full command as far as I viewed things back in the first half here. Aniton is going to be caught out. That should be a siren call to Good Boy, although he won't immediately take action upon it just yet. Wants to kind of savor his flank for later on in the round, but Aniton seems to be aware that something is up. Baits out the opening shots, and Good Boy takes that bait, although once again, very, very late to Aniton's actual peak. The Nitro Cell will fail because of that as well. It's Arukaze now that jumps back into the fray and starts to battle back this control for SANDBOX. Once again, was also that player in the first half as well to start things oftentimes for the attacking side. And now going to look to do the same exact thing here. Aniton should have been able to follow that through, but is not able to isolate the kill. Good Boy also wins out a separated 1v1 downstairs. So that potential pinch still alive and well. Aniton, though, finally finds the counter to Good Boy. And now Mephi already down on the inside of that T-room position. It just leaves Arukaze on the outskirts of Karaoke up and in this fight. And unfortunately won't stay that way for very long. Arcully shuts down this final kill. And it is indeed going to be a confident but close start for CAG at the beginning of the second half here as they look to rebound their way back into the game and back into the series.
Cyclops able to springboard after their earlier advantages in this. They were able to exploit a lot of the earlier positions that we saw from SANDBOX, and just across the board, very well done from them, especially with that frag grenade read that we saw from the position inside of Master. Past that, some more of the patience plays coming out from Cyclops that were able to, prove beneficial for them. Past SANDBOX, being able to get some of the bigger kills that ended up leading to that 3 versus 2 situation. But Cyclops still able to pressure things in a considerable manner, especially with the Nook play. That was the big moments there for them, was a lot of what they were able to accomplish with Arcully across the board in that round. So we'll have to see if they can continue with that, because that was definitely the biggest piece that we saw inside of round 7. But round 8 could obviously be quite a bit different, especially given the fact that SBX is going over towards Office and reinforcing things in a little bit of a different way than we've been, seeing normally.
We'll see if that difference potentially pays off either for the defense or the attack realistically. SANDBOX has not had the best go of things when it comes to specifically the first 2 minutes, but it's inside of that sight fight or gunfight in the bitter end of the round where they have been able to negotiate back some control for themselves. Whether take the round outright or eventually win it in the clutch. That's what they're looking to capture upon here yet again on the defensive side. Hopefully get some early round advances as well with the freedom they have in that first moment or two. Cyclops, though, it is going to be a pretty even spread of their player count across the entirety of the map to get things rolling here with the Office clear. And we can start at least checking out the internal POVs with Arcully, who's on the hunt once again on that Nook for the opening kill of the round.
Made it off the board, but CAG have been able to negotiate for some solid position. Arcoli down low here. Able to hide out from the camera, at least for some time, but not before his hell presence sensor is deactivated. CAG, nice and patient. Not looking to go too far with this, just looking to try and apply their utility where they can and see if it ends up baiting them into anything big and something that could potentially give them over this round. This could be the moment here. Frag Grenade's not going to be able to land. No damage off onto the SBX member. And Taylor able to stay here inside of Drum for the time being. Arcoli will be able to transition up Black Stairs as well. So down into this last minute now, Cyclops still with a long road ahead of him. And like we touched on before, this is the problem of Skyscraper. When the defense is more patient in the way that they want to play out the rounds, then you don't really have too big of an issue with timing when it comes down to it from the defensive perspective. It's the offense that really has to try and get on the gas. And now SANDBOX able to exploit this situation to its absolute fullest given the circumstances. They're all trying to pressure in on these doors, John, and they've been swept clean on multiple fronts.
One bright pickup is found by Chibisu, but that seems to be the only one they're going to be able to realistically negotiate for themselves. SANDBOX still staying way too strong inside of their slight positioning here, and only just now needing to kind of even fall away from their normal extensions. And even there, you can see here, they haven't even had to give that up entirely just yet. The church position, or rather the shrine position, is still being maintained. That extends into Dragon, of course, for the Azami. SANDBOX more than ready for the remaining two players to try and challenge these positions. Cyclops just way too slow and way too static with their overall attack on this follow-through here, so it's a pretty easy hold. Most of the anchors and whatnot never even really had to do much this round at the end of the day, as it does become a fairly simplistic hold when everything is said and done for SANDBOX. As they take yet another round, just 2 to go at this point, and they will find their first map of the series.
Well, looking solid, and the key thing is that they're staying true to the play style of Skyscraper. They're not getting too aggressive on this defensive side and giving over some big kills that could be the difference maker for Cyclops inside of these rounds. The Cyclops are initially looking for quite a few, just easy kills, whether it comes from frag grenades or just simple crosses, but SANDBOX are simply playing away from those areas, and it's working extremely well for them at the current moment. So just keep on keeping on and hope that the strategy stays true for them. They're going to try and translate this into a Masters defense, and we'll see if this can work well for them. They've got the frost mats out and about here. We'll see if that works out for Good Boy.
All right, so once again, SANDBOX looking to try and round this one up. 2 more rounds to go. They'll be able to capture this map number 1 of 3 needed to lock out this series. Cyclops, in the meantime, of course, still on the rebound themselves and still could realistically bring it back under their own control. This is going to be a living room hold. Not the sight we see played all that often. And as such, there's not going to be a whole lot of respect given over to that by the members of CAG Chibisu. And realizing that there is virtually no setup over here by Karaoke and Tea Room, leaps right in with the guard hook, although there is at least one player nearby, which you guys are seeing now on the silhouette. Demic directly across the hallway inside of Tea Room. Chibisu not wanting to risk his current position in Karaoke, though, is waiting for that warden to make the first move. But this has been the kind of characteristic issue for Cyclops, always waiting for their opponents to strike first. This is no longer the way this needs to be played, and that static position is going to allow Demic to ultimately fall back once he realizes that there's not going to be much of a follow-through from Cyclops here.
Well, CAG quick to deliver some action, at least when it comes to some utility usage. Should be getting in the building pretty quick, but past that, nothing really coming of it just yet. Nice little angle there. Envy Taylor, he wants all the smoke, and he'll get it. A lot of those rounds hitting him right in the chest, almost kills him right there. Frag grenade out, and Arcoli delivers as well. It's Mephi to go down. One on the stairwell here. That's going to be Demic trying to take that gunfight that will simply tag up Arcoli, but he will go down as well. Chibi, he's got the counter angle coming in from the dragon statue area, and now SANDBOX on the back foot. They were looking for the penultimate point. They were looking to guarantee overtime, but now this is starting to look more and more like what we saw in Kafe.
Arcali's still waiting for his moment to strike. It's a 5v3. Now's the time. And indeed, Arcali will initially go down. Good Boy allowed to exchange that into a second frag as well because, again, of the hesitance that we are seeing from both of these teams. CYCLOPS second guess themselves. That player on the inside of the site is braced for it. Good Boy is given a second chance to pick up more frags now because of that one. Chibisu thankfully takes out another member of the team, prevents this trade war from going completely out of control. But now Envy Taylor yet to be tested, at least in the current fight as of yet, has the possibility to excel. However, the Candles are going to kill that possibility very quickly as they'll drop down through the hatchwork instead. A little early on, the Nitro that works its way through the floor, so Anderton will not fall victim to that. He will now put Overwatch on the hatch, and the second explosive also going to work its way through there as well. Makes some pretty serious damage, or at least attempting serious damage onto our attackers, but just not really working out. They're going to begin the process of trying to open up these top downs for themselves. Suzuk being the one to try and do so, but keep on Suzuk with the case in hand too. They still need to deploy that, I think, for about 15 seconds to do so, and still need to make the transition onto the actual bottom floor site to make that a possibility. That'll be potentially where this execute could die once again. CYCLOPS did not leave themselves enough time to build up intel, but thankfully things start out cleanly. Anderton with the opening pickup. Envy Taylor tries to leap outside for a rotation. It will not pay off as Anderton takes him down as well. And now CAG sit one round away from being able to tie us up yet again.
5-4 in favor of SANDBOX, but CYCLOPS, the dominant factor inside of round 9 here, is they're able to not only open the door, but basically bust it off the hinges. It was really only Good Boy that had anything to say about it inside of that round. You really thought Envy Taylor had a strong position there to do something about the potential drops coming through the hatch or transitions in through the actual bedroom, but instead he throws himself outside and tries to go for the big rotation and try and jump in the window for that nice little kill, but nothing really coming of that either for that little cheeky swing, and they end up losing the round out because of those initial big engagements from CYCLOPS. Just way too much damage to the whole of the ship at the end of the day.
So give us a moment, guys. You guys are probably seeing it on the in-game chat there. We do have a little bit of a HUD bug, unfortunately, or something of that nature from one of the CAG members, so stick with us. I think they're probably going to have that player reconnect or something real quick, or alt-tab their way back in and back out, and then we should be good to move on. Shouldn't be a full rehost or anything required to get to that point, though, so should be a minimal amount of delay, hopefully, to get ourselves back into that. But once again, we are going to be hopping more than likely out of game while we do wait, of course, for those players to be set up. CIG just having a few tech issues today, so apologies once again, folks, for the delay of game because of that one. But we will be going back into it as soon as our players are ready to go, and seeing if, of course, CYCLOPS can complete that comeback to be able to bring themselves back from the brink and still look to control this matchup in a 3-0 final scoreline. Once again, they've been already very close to pushing themselves to that point, although obviously this is definitely the weakest showing we have seen so far from CYCLOPS for multiple reasons. Once again, a lot of it due to their own play style, but some of it as well being thrown out because of their opponents and the successes that they have found on the inside of this map so far.
John, I need you to huff on that copium real quick and tell me why SANDBOX turns this around and takes us best of 5 right now. I think that they have something to say after what we've seen here on Skyscraper. I just want you to go full SANDBOX sweat. Just tell me what's up.
Well, it's mainly just going to be capitalizing on, from what I've seen so far, the kind of inactivity in a lot of these rounds that we're getting out of CYCLOPS. CYCLOPS kind of leaving the window open for pretty much all playmaking capability from SANDBOX, and a lot of the times just kind of bowing down to them when they execute on it. So it needs to come from CYCLOPS right now to kind of change up their own fate a little bit, as they have fallen down so far inside of this map and been throwing out a bit lackluster play compared to what we were seeing in the previous 2 maps.
And in your professional opinion, Mr. Dr. Blue, do you think they can keep it together for these next handful of maps to actually run this full gauntlet? Or do you think
that's the tough.
That the wheels fall off the wagon? Like, where do you see this going?
I really think that, personally, I think this is just a tough map right now for CYCLOPS. And I think that once we go onto territory that they feel a little bit more familiar and grounded on, then there's no reason why we wouldn't get another potentially very close, but still very convincing result for CYCLOPS at the end of the day, especially when we look at the final 2 maps we still have at the end of the pool as well.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with you. I think that Cyclops is a little, unoriented right now with the way that things are necessarily going with the play style that SANDBOX is providing here on Skyscraper. But even with that being said, they're still able to find a lot of these crucial rounds for themselves, and they've been able to at least start a case for why they can potentially take this entire series right here. So, it's 5-4 right now. There's really no reason why they couldn't just knock it out of the park right now and make things easy for everybody. Have a pretty easy day for themselves at the end of the day. A nice little 3-mapper, and that's about it. So we'll see what Cyclops can potentially do, especially after this nice little break, and see if they have anything else to give us here. As we're gonna jump back into Skyscraper with SANDBOX defending the top floor yet again, and so we'll be headed towards T.
To wrap up the messaging with the bow, it's really under the control of Cyclops at the end of the day, of course, here as a SANDBOX as well. At least in my opinion, hasn't been doing anything like so super crazy strategically wise to win this map. Just been playing a very solid base game of Skyscraper here. That's been very much getting the better of Cyclops in more situations than not, but quite obviously it's still fairly close at a 5-4 scoreline. Cyclops may have had enough of this kind of respectful game though, looking at the way that they're looking to boom, potentially quite literally, into round 10 here as Black Ray is going to bring out the Blitz. Quite obviously, we can't see a Monty brought into play because it's been banned out for all 3 maps now, but maybe there's still some work to be done with the Blitz play here for Cyclops.
The attacker's bomb diffuser has been dropped. Attackers recovered the bomb diffuser.
Well, CAG showing some similar flares to what we've seen throughout the series, but looks like they might have brought some extra seasoning for this particular round, as we've got the Blitz and the Gara Hook all on deck. Black Ray hasn't really had the craziest rounds with the Blitz inside of this series so far, but this could be the game changer here, and it could be something that catches SANDBOX completely off guard, because I think this play is coming in pretty hot and heavy.
Yep, already breaching things open close to the site and immediately chucking down the smokes as well to mask the potential push coming through for the Blitz. Chibi, almost caught off guard, but thankfully Arukaze goes for utility toss instead. Black Ray now hopping his way through, but he's caught on the jump of the wall, trying to work his way onto the inside of Karaoke. Another down is marked against SANDBOX though, so it's not a big loss losing Black Ray at the end of the day, especially with those 2 kills also being found. That was the booming style of play from Cyclops that we had been missing up until this point in the game, but now they take control. Mephi still gets away with 2 more though before we're going down. That's the kind of dangerous part that of course has been causing them to lose rounds, but it's so far gone at this point that even with the heroics from Mephi, it's not going to be enough. Cyclops take the round away and take the tying point with it, now at 5-5.
There is no shot that they are about to not only tie this up, but potentially take this in regulation again. SANDBOX always in hot contention with Cyclops, but it just seems like Cyclops have that edge to their gameplay that SANDBOX can simply not procure.
So now that pressure shifts back over to SANDBOX. What are they going to do to subvert the expectations of play? How do they potentially shake up the meta a little bit here, get into the way of Cyclops' own plans to win things out for themselves? They've only got 2 rounds to potentially figure it out. Otherwise, Cyclops could not only be taking us to overtime, but potentially closing down this map outright in 3-0 fashion. SANDBOX need to piece this one back together. They were doing fantastically by just playing that sort of default style previously. And now we're not necessarily going to fall back onto that, but in fact, they're going to give us something quite different in terms of the utility being brought out specifically here. The Thunderbird, which is not something we tend to see that often at all, except for, again, I think in APAC matchups here where it does tend to pop up every once in a while. So Envy Tail is going to bring that in, provide a few little home bases for these players to fall back to and kind of recuperate their health if things end up going poorly. And then we've got that other annoyance that is quite literally annoying our players on the attacking side with that big, bold red text in the middle of their screen right now. The Clash being played by Demic as he's popping out here to try and cause at least a little bit of a distraction with this walkout.
The good news for Demic is there's nothing that's really too hostile towards him in the lineup for Cyclops. Could have a pretty interesting affair, on the horizon between Black Ray and Demic if we end up getting that 1v1, but a lot of team play still to be had inside of this round around these two, so I highly doubt that we end up getting that unstoppable force up against an immovable object. Suzu is going to rotate himself around on the balcony side, though, but reinsert himself onto the same position that he just was. Looks like they want to try and claim this area over here on the far T side. They do have a body to worry about, though. Looks like it's potentially NV Taylor. No, it's going to be Good Boy, actually. It's over on this far and does actually have NV Taylor in tow, though, inside of T.
Good Boy's been a massive saving grace for hitting shots like this, but with the shield in the way, it's going to be a little bit difficult to land it, specifically against the head. As you can see, too well defended, of course. Now NV Taylor does loop his way into the situation. Good Boy doing a fantastic job, at least, of baiting in the presence for now NV Taylor to latch onto and catch at least one kill. Unfortunately, that's the only kill he'll get away with here. Anderton suffering from quite a bit of damage once again. That's just Good Boy dashing across this breach here, throwing out shot after shot. Unfortunately, he is not immune to the damage that he's throwing out as well. He loses about just as much HP that he took off from Anderton. Ultimately, though, is going to be able to escape from that kind of a tense situation and fall back closer to the actual site, waiting for the rest of the pressure to come through now from CYCLOPS, having cleared things out and only leaving about a minute to correct onto the actual site. Execute Good Boy will get his health drained pretty heavily, though, to equal things out between him and Anderton from the fight that he had taken against him earlier, but still very much in the fight here, as you can see over by VIP, where he's continuing to maintain pressure against any push that might come from the Dragon or, of course, the Shrine side of things.
It's getting more and more difficult for Cyclops as well, especially as this timer continues to dwindle. A lot of their utilities so very strong in the clutch, especially with the Nitro cell that we see on Arukaze that could come to show its ugly head. And yes, indeed, it is a little awkward here for the Blitz. But now the plant coming down as Suzu start the plant. Chibi's got one in. And oh my gosh, I don't even think they know that he's here.
He just went up the hatch.
He still doesn't know that he's here. He's dead. Suzu gets the plant down. There's no way in hell that SANDBOX go out like this. Good Boy rotates back in. Jonathan, they've done it.
Oh my goodness. Suzu, either by hopping in through the and we didn't obviously get the seats, we don't know exactly what happened, but either by hopping in through the Arsenal window or using the Gara hook to work their way up through the hatch. More than likely was the window, because there's a very little chance, in my opinion, that he used the very loud hook to go up through the hatch and somehow didn't give an audio cue off that he was planting as well, and they somehow just did not notice that with two players standing right next to him. So more than likely the window play, but just as impressive either way, that he just sneaks that in, and more importantly, has the absolute courage to just sit there and stick the plant while there's two enemies sitting right around the corner from you. Full confidence in your teammates holding that distraction, and that's exactly what happens now as Cyclops push the match and series point here already on map 3 out of 5 of this series.
I mean, that is some serious balls to listen to somebody reloading directly next to you and not get off the plant. That is incredible. I never in my life would I ever consider doing
massive
that.
Blunder on SANDBOX, not to catch that.
Oh, absolutely.
To be fair about that, but still.
Even if he did get in through the window, the fact that nobody knew that he got into that portion of the site and was starting that plant is laughable. And if he Gara hooked, that's even funnier. Like, that is just, I don't even understand how that happens. That is just unfathomable. You can't have that. You just can't have it. You can't have it.
All right. Well, once again, issues begin to surface for SANDBOX, just as we were seeing in the previous two maps, and now they are quite literally up against the wall. The firing squad is ready to rock and roll, so they need to find some way to escape this fate, or they will find themselves knocked out of the running, and the opportunity, of course, to make it to Gamers 8, as this is our one and only qualifier. All the other slots will be going out as far as more via direct invites. So this will very potentially be your representative via the qualifiers, of course, from APAC going to that event as Cyclops sits just one round away from claiming it out. But again, much like our previous few maps, it is one round and one round only to do it in regulation. They've succeeded on the previous two maps to shut it down 7-5 both times. Now we have to see if SANDBOX has obviously given us, at least in my opinion, a much stronger showing on this map. Can they finally piece things back together one final time to trigger OT, at least here on map 3?
I gotta say, I'm worried for SANDBOX. You know, I think Jesse pointed it out, you know, about what they've been recently going through over the last year or so, and it's really been that this team has not played too well in the clutch. So yet again, we have a moment in front of them where they really need to be the difference maker in their own fate. They cannot allow Cyclops to try and walk over them. So this round, very crucial to what happens obviously, as well as Cyclops will be able to close out the series, the most crucial round to their entire lifespan here in Gamers Without Borders.
Chibi patiently waiting for the peek to come in from Gong. It gets that opportunity, but the shot is not where it needs to be, unfortunately. Black Ray also tries to make an advance elsewhere on the map and nearly loses his life in the process, though it sneaks off a little bit of damage, it looks like, against Envy Taylor in the process of that clearance. So not going to be taking an empty prize home with him for at least moving forward, and we'll still have the map control to play into there. Chibi, eventually, oh no, it's the Stair Frost map that gets the better of him. Good chance that won't be actionable by the members of SANDBOX, so a good possibility because of that we'll actually get Chibi back up, and even better for Cyclops, they may not need Chibi here ultimately, as Arcully just strikes true outright, gets the full opening kill of the round against Good Boy instead.
But oh no, not like this. Cyclops, they're just chomping at the bit right now to try and get in here and decimate SANDBOX. But now it seems like it's coming back to bite them, as Good Boy will be able to take out one from the grave. As you said, Black Ray will go down for a grenade out here for Chibi as well. Some new lines of sight being adopted from Suzu too, as they try to see if they can break up some of the other barriers and things along those lines that are holding them back. This little single panel here, nice position in Dragon, and Mephi with a nice kill. He's going to take a lot of damage for that, but nothing that Cyclops can't handle. We've seen them in the clutch before, and it seems like it's just about that time.
Cyclops starting to be a little bit limited on drones as well. 4 left to be utilized here, but keep in mind that most of those are under the control of players that are still alive, and they really can't back away from this situation, as they, are going to have to keep a watch out for peaks like that from Arukaze, who swings out into the open, shuts out Anit, and Chibisu falls after that one, meaning that we do have a comeback from SANDBOX as well. They're going to be able to renegotiate their positioning inside of this round. Cyclops once again second guess their own capability to move forward, are not able to knock out that very stalwart position that is maintained mostly by the Azami as well. Once again, as we call back to that one, the fact that the Azami has been left unbanned for all 3 of these maps is creating kind of immovable objects quite often in the midst of these rounds, and we see that become a big problem for the members of Cyclops there, as they do lose their one and only chance to close things down in regulation, but there's always overtime, of course. 3 more rounds up on the board for both of our teams. The next team to win 2 out of 3 of those does take this map.
Like you said, it's a best of 3 rounds now, and the defensive end is going to be going to SANDBOX, so they'll be happy about that. They'll be starting us off in karaoke. We did see Cyclops win this in a pretty interesting way the last time that SANDBOX defended this, though. But as of right now, I'll scratch that. I was about to say no Nook in the lineup, but Arcully has just moved us way down the block list here. So he is, in fact, going to be bringing the Nook to the party. So we'll see if SANDBOX can try and keep some eyes on, especially for these stairwells that he is seemingly more than willing to abuse.
10 seconds left before insertion.
Well, for SANDBOX, though, still going to be setting most of this setup in an expected fashion. Good Boy definitely trying to double down on some of that Capcan trap usage, as we were seeing it be, well, quite potent in the previous round there, as we saw at least 2 kills or 2 downs at a minimum come just from straight trap operator usage. 1 down going against the members of the Cyclops, of course, from a Frostmat, and then another 1 kill being found from the EDDs outright. So that strategy working out quite nicely for SANDBOX. They will try to incorporate it again, as Cyclops obviously a little bit desperate oftentimes to find that opening kill or 2 for themselves, and as such, they often find themselves wanderlusting for it, which means that more often than not, we can see them walking through those doors without properly checking for the EDDs, causing at least 1 more player to falter. Envy Taylor roaming around, of course, the opposite side of the map, looking to try and capitalize on any of that early clear pressure we may have gotten from Cyclops, but they are keeping themselves fairly reserved as usual, so not going to be giving any of those opportunities over in the first few seconds so easily to the members of, oh, I was just about to say, to the members of Cyclops, but never mind. Demic makes it happen instead. Envy Taylor, though, tries to go back for a second peek downstairs by the living room area, and he'll pay the price for that one, as Arcully does find the direct exchange now to the loss of Chibisu.
Well, CYCLOPS has at least done a good job of being able to maintain a equal man count here between the two teams. Chibi will go down, and Chibi has been the one that has been lighting the world on fire for CYCLOPS and has brought them back in this series. So definitely going to be sorely missed going into the later portion of this round. But Addison,
oh my God.
Oh no, not like this, Arcully. The nade bounces right back in his face off the soft destruction and ends up taking his life. And now it's into the 3 versus 3 for these two.
Worst time for it to happen as well for CYCLOPS. It's just gotten a very important pickup kill, and now they've thrown that advantage away. So not what you want to be seeing at this phase of the game, and it just continues to get worse as far as the news for CYCLOPS is concerned. Anaton, the strongest entry by far, at least in tonight's game, now gone, leaving it all on Suzu and BlackRay, who, if we're being honest, again, both players have struggled pretty harshly inside of this series to perform when it just comes to a straight-up fragging potential. So there's not going to be much hope left alive for the 2v3 clutch because of that one. SANDBOX more than likely going to be teeing up round 7 in just a second here, as indeed there's the first kill being completed by Arukaze. BlackRay, all that remains now in the 1v3 set before him would be a massive change to his performance so far throughout this series if he was able to give us the outright 1v3 clutch. More than likely not going to see that come true, but we'll hold our breath for a moment and see if BlackRay can give us something special, as he's very quickly even being limited in his angle work that he can deploy towards here, as the counter to his push has already popped back out on the inside of Karaoke. At least prevents the EDD death, but as he walks forward there, you can see just a simple double peek from the players in T-Room. Could take him down, but instead it's going to be Arukaze with a long-range headshot from the TCSG that gets it done instead. SANDBOX, once again, up on map point now with the capability to shut things down here.
SANDBOX didn't really have to do much, minus let CYCLOPS kind of fall to their own devices there. A lot of misplays coming out from CYCLOPS, a self-nade, and a couple of other big issues there that befell them. And now SANDBOX with an opportunity to extend this series, although CYCLOPS had a chance to shut it down completely in a 3-0 fashion.
And indeed, those opportunities for CYCLOPS to quickly put things to an end here are shifting away from them, but CYCLOPS at least have a defensive round to fall back on here, hopefully to re-equalize it and reignite that potential. SANDBOX going to be going for a very execute-heavy lineup, looking to quickly work their way past any of the reinforced walls that CYCLOPS are setting up for themselves right now, and then potentially ying their way directly into the site. A no-respect play, which once again will be a bit of a big change-up. These have been very slow, very measured accounts from all of our attackers so far, not wanting to take any huge risks in the early round, really trying to out-intel their opponents, especially when it comes to clearing the extended games. And it's said mixed results, realistically, for both teams here. There hasn't really been one true winner one way or the other. It just created a lot of very slow-paced rounds where those 1 or 2 opening duels kind of have a pretty heavy pull effect on how the rest of the round is going to play out.
Well, SANDBOX now out and about, ready to see if they can take Skyscraper, their map choice, and push us through to a 4th map inside of this best of 5. Demic's going to be the one with the case. Plenty of utility across the board for them to try and hit this execute and get this game dealt with. I love the Brava pick here as well to try and deal with some of these other pieces of pivotal utility, like the cam work and some other things that he can end up taking with this character. So we'll see what SANDBOX can potentially get done. They'll at least take the default cam here in Drum and be able to suss out Jaeger, who will be holding down the area.
See, once again, slow build up from both of our teams, as at least one member of CYCLOPS' roam game going to be found out, trying to navigate through those stairs, though. Not a super extended position, so it's not too big of a deal for that player to rotate back, but now a Brava drone going to be spotted out here by Chibi, so that'll be a big piece of utility. Still at about 2 thefts remaining on that drone as far as I can tell, so that'll get taken. The good news is we do still have MD Taylor taking out quite a bit more of the kind of straightforward utility inside of the site when it comes to the things like the magnets, the jammers and whatnot, all that being deployed or destroyed in this case quite handily by those Rotero drones, so the Brava drone can focus on the more pointed pieces of utility like the default cams, which can obviously be much more useful to the inside play and any bullet person and whatnot, which may actually just correct myself, don't have any of those currently for the defense, but the point still stands here. As once again, SANDBOX trying to wind themselves up for the execute. Much like CYCLOPS, there's a lot of hesitation to go for that direct play, and oftentimes that hesitation can snowball into some bad vibes for the actual execute itself. So let's see if SANDBOX can get over that and get over themselves to make round 8 a possibility, as they can win the map here and now. If they can get past those keep-up barricades first off, but we'll see, as Chibisu is busy taking a fight elsewhere, and he will win that fight confidently against Good Boy, a very powerful member of the SANDBOX roster being countered out. blackray does the same to Envy Taylor. R. Cully wins out his 1v1 against Mephi as well. It's an uncommon sight here that CYCLOPS are winning so many attached 1v1s without any response whatsoever. This has been a very even game so far, with this round being the glaring exception to that. Demic, the only one to make his mark here. And a bit of a moot point for him as well, as he's still detached from most of this execute on the outside of the building. Makes the wrap towards the inside and towards this breach specifically. Nicely done as well to be able to pick up that second kill very quickly against Anderton. But Chibisu is ready for the response, and we'll shut down the rest of the round. And we go to full 15 to settle this one, as we'll be tied yet again 7-7.
All right, well, no blunder that time from CYCLOPS. SANDBOX able to fight it down to the 1 versus 2, but not enough left in the tank, and they run out of gas at the end of the day. CYCLOPS, though, now with an opportunity to close out this series in practically the quickest fashion that you can, minus, you know, some of the round count that we've gotten here at the tail end. It'll be a 3-0, but the main key thing is that they really have to focus on just worrying about the, you know, mid-round and trying to stay on the same page. Really trying to focus on trying to stay blunderless from what we saw in their earlier offensive round inside of this overtime, where they ended up creating a few errors that really led to their demise. So far, so good, though, when it comes to not only the SANDBOX setup, really liking what we're seeing, but also what CYCLOPS is bringing to the table to try and play this out up against SANDBOX. They've got a lot of pretty strong utility that is highly effective against the SANDBOX lineup, especially against Clash here with Anderton working his way in on the Zofia. But as soon as I bring up the point, he's going to switch off. I really like that Zo pick there. Those concussions, fantastic for working around the shield of Clash. Instead, going to bring in the Ying, and honestly, an even stronger pick, but for different reasons, right? More for the, you know, execute utility and the way that they can just flash themselves on the site.
It's a bit weird, too, because the Clash is going to become far less effective because of the changes that CYCLOPS have made. However, we'll see the Thunderbird, which was also included the last time the Clash was picked on this very same site, now becomes much more useful, just because of the fact that we can probably see SANDBOX more directly delay out some of this potentiality. And even with that just inherent delay, it's going to come from CYCLOPS' own setup. They no longer have the Blitz, for instance. They're not going to be rushing directly into the Clash, which was a big issue for them. But now, because they don't have that shield operator, they can't just brute force the site. They do have to play a bit more of a slow and respectful take, and that's going to give breathing room to SANDBOX to actually use those counter stations that Envy Taylor has brought with him this time. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that the change-ups from CYCLOPS have boosted or potentially nerfed the lineup of SANDBOX here. However, first kill is very much a buff to CYCLOPS, as R. Kelly takes down Good Boy outright. No room for response to that nade, as it will sing from below.
Our Coley is so strong, and just sussing out those positions above him via those audio cues. You saw the reposition from the SBX member there, and almost another one getting felled as he rotates past that hatch. SBX have to try and play this out safely here, John, but the big thing is you also have to try and go for those plays as well. So how safe can you be? Can't worry too much about these things. Suzu's going to go for the plant now as he gets stunned out. Really doesn't matter here, though. Mostly just to try and force these players back. They'll get the wall breached open, and now it's going to be a big swing here from Clash, as well as Arukaze, who's currently 18-6. Done so much heavy lifting here and has to do even more at the tail end of this round as we go into the dying minute.
I do appreciate how they counter. Nicely found by blackray here to get yet another kill built up. That's going to be Mephi being eliminated. They've had problems getting past the zombie in the past as well, so sniping her out from below is a massive take. But again, I love how the solution to dealing with the Clash so far has been just use 75% of the Candelas on her face, so we can at least get this first breach open. Now the last one going to be chucked in. There's an aggressive play being made by the Clash as well, but they're not able to get Envy Taylor in a workable position. He gets collapsed upon by Anderton, but reads it in advance and turns that back around. So much pressure onto Envy Taylor, and unfortunately, he can no longer sustain from the inside of the site. Suzu takes him down, takes it to the bitter end as Demic is also found. Arukaze is all that remains here on the Warden for the 1v4, but with only 10 seconds left to play out, he can still clutch this. There's the beginning of it, but so much shots coming in from the backside. Our Cully is going to be able to finish him off, and with that, they will finish off the game and the series along with it. A big congratulations to Cyclops as they win out our grand finals for the Japan and Korea bracket 3-0 over their opponents in SANDBOX.
They get it done, Blue. A 3-0 victory here in this best of 5. And although it was a 3-0, it was a back and forth between these two. You know, either max inside of regulation or OT necessary for every single map. And just very well done to both teams. But commiserations, obviously, to Cyclops for their hard-fought match.
Yeah, it was a grinder of a match as well when we consider, of course, just how many rounds we needed to play it out. But that'll do it for the two of us. We're going to go back to the desk now so they can break down this very beautiful game.
Blue and Stokes, for all of your hard work. That was incredible. Right, we've got our winners of the Korea-Japan region. Congratulations to Cyclops. A convincing 2-0 in yesterday's semi-final, and then a convincing 3-0 today in our best of 5 grand final. A deserved victory, I have to say. They'll be donating $300,000 to a charity of their choice, and they've got that coveted ticket to Gamers 8 later in the year. I've got to say, Jacob, that was a little bit stressful.
Just a little bit, just the very, very end. You feel like there's not really a way that a team like Cyclops can really choke an advantage like that, but they had to scrape back and get it was more of the problem. That map did not start out in their favor. This is almost a time where I wondered if SANDBOX was kind of throwing everything to the wolves, just seeing if anything would stick, realizing that they are in a mode where they genuinely have nothing to lose. I think that probably played a part of it. And then Cyclops get the half that they actually want. They start clawing things back. They're a much better attacking team, apparently overall, than we were giving them credit for on this map, in spite of not playing it for a while. So we came in with a lot of unknowns, but thankfully the prediction of a 3-0 for Cyclops ended up being right in the end.
I mean, Jesse, this play style, this blitz energy that they've got is so entertaining for us and for the viewers at home. But, you know, they dangled the carrot a little bit for SANDBOX in that map 3, but snatched it away and just tore apart that lead in the late game. But yeah, like I said, I'm still sweating.
We've been watching a Korean roster led by Envy Taylor for like 7 years now, and it's the same story every time. It's so disappointing for this roster to come so close so often to qualifying for a big event or to, you know, be the big stars of APAC, and time again, when everything matters the most, they just aren't able to close it out. Arukaze put on a monstrous performance today, especially at the very start of the game, but all throughout, you know, towards the end as well, really having a big impact, and then just not able to do it. I think him being in a 1v4 to end out that game kind of describes how this felt. It's almost like he's alone, right? Not able to close things out for his team. Too much weight on his shoulders. It's so tough for SANDBOX to be losing this one. You know, it's a great point about the kind of chaotic playstyle coming out from Cyclops. They did a great job with that. I thought those 3 attacks that they ran together, 9, 10, and 11, in that second half were massive for them, and a lot of that was coming, you know, that blitz pushing forward. Then they had that top-down execute when they had very little time, but still managed to get it off. And then round number 11, the Amaru up the hatch. So often it felt like these kind of like, yeah, creative operators, we'll say, being brought, the blitz, the Amaru, they really weren't like the key stars of it, but they caused enough of a distraction, or at least the focus wasn't really there from SANDBOX to shut those things down, that the other players were able to step in, find some big frags, just like we saw on Kafe. So, you know, standard Cyclops playstyle coming through here. They do it so well, and another tragedy for SANDBOX.
You speak about round 9, 10, and 11 being the turning point, because a little piece of information for you, Jacob. After 8 rounds in map 3, no one from Cyclops had a positive KD.
Yeah, that's actually really true. So to see anybody bounce back with it, specifically Chibisu and Arcole, the fact that anybody did is in and of itself a miracle. I think Cyclops were honestly, in my mind, the only team from these 4 at GWB that had the possibility of qualifying for G8 and actually making any relative noise. But when they go to Saudi Arabia, they need to make considerably more noise faster than they did in a map like this. A guy like Suju's, he's not supposed to be kill friendly. A guy right? Like Black Ray was definitely concerning me, and then Anderson was able to claw his way back into things very, very gradually. But it's a matter of the hot start. They need to have the hot hand when they go to land, because they're probably not going to go very far if they don't. But I am very, very happy for everyone involved that they were able to recover things and bounce back very quickly after what seemed like one of the more concerning halves we've probably seen out of this team in quite some time.
For myself, while watching that map number 3, I have to say that we had a mini redemption in those last few rounds, because Arculi naded himself and everyone was like, oh my goodness, the panic that ensued. But then the redemption nade for that first kill in the final round, I believe it was the final round or the second final round. Okay, miniature redemption. That's how you turn a frown upside down, Jesse.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. It was the final round, round 15. Nade from below tosses it up. Absolutely, it was a redemption. And I think it kind of highlights that final round, how important the bottom floor was in this map. It felt like so often these rounds were being decided based on who controlled the bottom floor. We saw depth charge after depth charge after depth charge. So many good vertical nades coming through from below. And then even the Buck getting involved. Didn't see a lot of that throughout the regulation rounds, but round 15, Buck comes on in with Black Ray finding that second pick, really opening things up after that nade came in through Arculi. Really impressive stuff coming through from both these squads. We saw both teams prioritizing that bottom floor. It honestly felt like SANDBOX doing a better job of controlling it for the majority of this game, but when it mattered, when you got to overtime, CYCLOPS were there.
We can keep talking about individual performances because we have an MVP of that series brought to you by Savvy Games Group, and that MVP is Chivitsu. It's a good one, isn't it? You know what? Played out of his socks, especially in that final map, Jacob.
I'm okay with it. I think there's a part of me that definitely would have liked to have seen somebody like Arculi, because I think his map 2 and map 1 especially were really, really strong. But Chibisu, I think for the performances he had in maps 1 and 3 specifically, totally fine to see somebody up here. And I love that this further legitimizes the pickup that CYCLOPS went for. A guy like Chibisu coming from a Fnatic system that was looking for something to ground him, a place where he really, really could thrive. I think it's working out the best for Chibisu and CYCLOPS in turn. So to see him put up numbers like this is honestly phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big change from maps 1 and 2 to map 3 for Chibisu, he was always finding those frags, you know, he was always hitting the scoreboard, but that third map, really no mistakes. I mean, I didn't note a single time in my notes, I'm looking through now, where it's like a rough play from Chibisu, and I did note a couple of those throughout the first 2 maps, so nice to see him kind of grow throughout the series. I think that third map, him just really hitting that consistent stride was massive. So yeah, I think well-deserved MVP.
Okay, well, Jesse and Jacob, you're not going to be here for our EU Grand Final, so I want to get your thoughts very quickly on that. We're going to have BDS going up against wylde. If we've got the BDS from yesterday, I feel like this is going to be an extremely tough match for wylde, right? Jacob, let's start with you, my friend.
No, I'd certainly hope so. And I think I don't like the idea of a championship possibly happening without the defending champ also being there. Credit where credit is due, I think wylde have been able to put together a really good team on what seems like relatively short notice in stage 1 all the way up until now. But if we see that same BDS that we saw from yesterday and that same amount of resiliency, I really don't see a way to ultimately count them out. I think it'll be close. That honestly might be a 5-mapper, so buckle up, Banks. But honestly, I still think BDS can probably take it.
Jesse, do you agree?
I think so. I mean, wylde may have beat them in a BO3, but it's BO5 territory now. Shaiko's coming back angry. Lickyfax looking good after yesterday. Yeah, I'm feeling BDS for this one.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for all of your hard work during that series. That's it for the Korea-Japan region. Congratulations once again to CYCLOPS. They've taken home that ticket to Gamers 8 and obviously all of that charity prize money that they're going to be donating to a charity of their choice. We're going to be doing a little switcheroo in this virtual studio, but when we're back, we're going to have the EU Grand Final for you. See you in a bit.